quote Bono, it's Monday, Bloody Monday, and welcome to Wrestling Tonight, live from the No Sale Studios. I'm the Ace of the Tavern, Acefield Retro, and joined as always by the one bad Chad, my partner in crime for wrestling news. What's up, man?
I love that you dropped a Bono quote. I was not expecting that. I'm stoked. A lot of good news on the table. We've got Revolution on the horizon, AEW pay-per-view. It's always a good week. Hopefully we can get all you guys locked in for the wrestling week.
Hell yeah. And you know what? Like to change up the intro. You and I were talking about what to do, and it came up top of the dome. Sunday, Bloody Sunday was stuck in my head. We are recording on Sunday, but of course, it is Monday night, getting you guys caught up. We're about an hour from Monday Night Raw, so stay strapped in, man. We're going to get you all caught up and start with the big three stories right now.
Yeah, tons of great stuff to talk about, so let's get into the big three.
Story number one, and it is quite possibly the most potential of star power, if not the biggest star power in AEW right now. Jade Cargill has showed that she has been a little bit unhappy, and a lot of that has been on Twitter. So we're going to be talking in depth about this, and this is a really big story because of Jade's impact for not just the women's division, but for what AEW is trying to build as far as transcendent stars. They don't have that. We talk about this all the time. What they're really missing is that crossover star, and who has more crossover potential than Jade at this point?
Yeah, I think she has more potential than almost anyone in pro wrestling. Like, if handled correctly, as far as just the it factor, we've talked about it on the debate before. We've talked about it on the flagship. I think we've even brought up some of this stuff on Wrestling Tonight in previous weeks, but she's right there with Roman if you handle her correctly. But evidently she doesn't feel like she's being handled correctly right now. At least it seems like that, unless we're being worked. But what do you think, Ace?
Yeah, it's tough to say because Twitter's used, and we talked about this last week. It seems like it's a perfect tie-in, but Twitter's used as this apparatus to tell stories in wrestling, but it's also used to air frustrations in an immediate gut reaction type of stuff. And who knows what this is with Jade, but if we look at it from our perspective, we've talked about it endlessly, that we feel like she needs to have meaningful programs. She mentioned that interview kind of lightheartedly, talking about, I want to work with the Jamie Hayters, the Tony Storms, the Sarayas, and she's not doing that quite yet. And you mentioned that tweet. What really makes me believe that this is sort of straight from the heart, and she probably wanted to take it back before the IWC screenshotted it, was deleted. So, the tweet says it here for those that are listening on audio. They are fumbling the bag, ... heavy. So she deleted that. You know who they are. She doesn't have to use the proper noun of AEW. We know that because right now there's a lot of money on the table with potential programs with Jade. She's a huge star. She's essentially holding their mid-card championship. So when are they going to be pulling the trigger of having her work in those main event stories? She has to look at those programs, what they're doing with the AEW originals and the freelancers, and look at, like, I could be doing something better, put more emphasis on me rather than the story that feels disjointed.
Yeah, and I feel like something like this, this tweet and her feeling that made her pull the trigger on this tweet, I think it amplifies when you get closer to a big show. Obviously, we have Revolution this coming weekend. She's not on the card right now. And, she hasn't really been featured beyond just squash matches. Honestly, like, I think she had one little storyline. If we really want to look, the one storyline she had was with Nyla Rose when Nyla stole the belt, and that was nice. Like, I liked that storyline. Was it big and monumental? No, but at least it was a storyline. And Nyla Rose, people forget she's a former champion in AEW. I feel like they've kind of forgotten her a little bit, where she should feature heavily in that division. And so it was nice to see Jade and Nyla working together. But, when she has that quote that we had a couple weeks ago on the show where she's talking about wanting to work with, the Britt Bakers, the Jamie Hayters, Sarayas, Tony Storms, all of those, like, and then it still isn't happening. All those women are tied up together, and she's just kind of wondering, like, hey, man, like, here's a big show. I'm not even featured on it. I think she knows her worth. Like, she knows In that quote we read a couple weeks ago, she said, "If you stand me next to any of these ladies, the work, the look, and the aura of who I am speaks for itself." And I think all fans realize that too. Like if you put her with Saraya, Britt, any of those other ladies, the it factor is with Jade. I think it's time, man. Do you think do, do you think this is a real problem with AEW? Like, do you think it's a timing issue where they're just waiting to pull the trigger and she's getting kind of antsy about not having something in the here and now? Or do you think this is a bigger issue that she is unhappy just in general? And could we see her make a move to a WWE if her contract comes up?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about the lack of follow through on AEW storytelling. You can go down the list with the Wardlow story. They never really finished that. When anyone wins a title, they do the moments well, like they did with her winning the TBS championship and having these squash matches. They've done moments well. But as far as long-term story about weaving it in and out of meaningful programs for Jay, they haven't done it. And I think it's not just her, it's everybody. I think they have a really hard time of following through. And it's really tough right now because she's a character that's built very strong, and it's not completely Goldberg adjacent. She's undefeated, but she does take a little bit less, of the squash approach. She does get, I mean, we've seen her sell. It's not like she hasn't been selling, but in order to have a meaningful program, they have to find a way to keep her as strong, but have her look vulnerable, because it's a give and take of these programs that we see with any main event star. You have to leave some weeks looking down and feeling like you're going to come up short. And I think that's more of a textured storytelling that Tony Khan has the inability right now, or he hasn't proven he could tell that yet. And she's a tough person. I think right now it's like they're holding her in this glass case because they know how much potential she has, but they don't want to ruin it by, say, putting her in a program with, say, Ruby Soho, and it winds up being this, like, I don't know, they make her look too vulnerable, and then what happens with Wardlow happens to her, and then we're like, wow, what could have been with Jade? Now she's back in the middle of the card, and maybe it goes poorly, because again, Wardlow and Jade have a lot of parallels. I think what they did with Wardlow with that MJF program, that should have rocketed him to the moon. And it felt like he plateaued after winning the TNT championship. And you ask the question, why? Like, so I'd be nervous for that happening with Jade because of just history and the short history we've seen.
Well, I think they're in a tricky spot too, where you talk about, you want to show vulnerability. She's this dominant force, but I think the only way you can show vulnerability in Jade without it hurting her is for it to happen within the context of a greater story. Obviously, if she's just having one-off matches, it does kind of hurt her to show vulnerability in just a one-off match. But if you're telling a long-form story, a feud with another person who maybe gets one up on her physically and gets her down, attacks her in the back, whatever angle you want to shoot, I think that fans would rally behind her, and she is a proven draw. Like people, if you look at like the ratings when she's on, it's typically like good ratings. But when you talk about AEW gets the moments right, and typically they do, but one moment I think they squandered with Jade, and I think this may have been the tipping point for her starting to get a little disgruntled, was her 50 wins. Like they built, we're going this, this Goldberg winning streak type of situation, and AEW kind of punted on a potentially great build to 50 wins, and they paid for it, because by stitching together a match against Red Velvet for that 50 win spot, nobody believed she could lose against Red Velvet. AEW, Dynamite's quarter hour in viewership for that 50 win segment only got almost 800,000 viewers. So it was very low for Jade. And that was her big 50 win moment. To me, that shows you like they should have built to a bigger situation for her, a bigger person, a bigger feud. They should have built that up. Now, I get the Red Velvet tie-in. You know, if her and Red Velvet have been intertwined since she debuted. If you remember, she teamed with Shaquille O'Neal,
Yeah.
Cody Rhodes, and Red Velvet mixed tag intergender match. So that was at the very beginning of her AEW career. But I don't think we're too far gone, but I think we're at the point now where something needs to change soon. And I'm not faulting AEW, because if you really think about Jade, it's not like they've just been wasting her for a year or even 6 months. It's not like they've done that, because if you really think, Jade is a new talent. She hasn't been wrestling for a long, long time. If they would have put her into situations maybe 6 months ago, she could have been exposed, man. She
True.
could. So I do think they are trying to be smart about it. Let her get some tenure under her. She's been training with Bryan Danielson. But I think now we are a little past the moment where they could have started doing something big with her. She's put the time in. I think it's time you got to let her go, and you got to let her sink or swim on a big stage with a big opponent.
Yeah, and if Double or Nothing is considered your biggest event of the year, I think that should be your crowning moment. And we've all fantasy booked it, whether she single-handedly drops the TBS title, like relinquishes it in lieu of the world title, and figuring that out. Because like we mentioned before, booking her is tricky. I'm not like you, I don't want to fault anyone. I could sit here and say I could book it perfectly, but I'd be lying. I don't think it's an easy thing, because we've seen historically the rise of the undefeated streak. Obviously, the most historical one is Goldberg, but everything that happens after that kind of falls flat unless you continue the story. And Goldberg never really recovered from that as far as WCW goes. Of course, he's still making money in wrestling, but Goldberg will always be remembered for his streak, beating Hogan in front of a raucous Georgia Dome crowd and continuing the streak. And then when he lost the streak with the, it's almost like a shit posting moment with the taser from Scott Hall and all that stuff. And no matter what you did, I think people would have been disappointed, because they love that ride. I don't feel like we're on that ride with Jade, though. I don't think there's been that many memorable squashes, because, like I mentioned, like Red Velvet gets offense in. So if you're going to have her sell and you're going to have her look vulnerable in any way, put her in the ring with Britt Baker and let them go at it. Put her in the ring with Jamie Hayter. Let them go. I'm not saying go 25, 30 minutes, but let her just be like in a big program, have that huge entrance, do the championship entrance, and feel like a big star. The other thing on the table could be potentially, Forbidden Door. Let her go against Mercedes. Like, I think that could be awesome as well. And I think she's up for the challenge. I really think she's improved greatly. I think she has shown, like, it's not just potential anymore. It's the here and now. And, her star speaks for itself. I think at this point, she has outshone a lot of the women in the division, if not all of them. And she can see that. Like, I think you could see just the writing on the wall that it's either put the crown on her or she's going over to WWE to have a huge money-making program with like someone like Bianca Belair or Becky Lynch. I could see her going over there and very seamlessly, because she fits that aesthetic.
Dude, Paul Levesque would have wet dreams about her main eventing WrestleMania. She is exactly the type of star they would want. I don't know when her contract is up. I know she signed a multi-year deal not too long ago, maybe a year or so ago. So
someone out there, please make a database with, live changing of contracts so we can access it and just be like, oh, cool. FTR comes up in April. Right. Yep. Jade is June 2024.
We need that, because man, if you look at, here's one thing that I think is a major point to this story. It's easy for us fans, hardcore fans, casual fans, to look at the situation. Oh, they need to do this. They need to book her in this. You don't know all the inner workings of what has happened that they had planned, that they had to pull the plug on maybe and had to shift storyline, because at one point there was Bow Wow was in there, and there was something with Bow Wow and Jade that they were building to, and then they just dropped it. So what was in that? We had Mercedes on the table. There was all those rumors, possibly she's coming over. Were they holding Jade for something with that? Where was the Bow Wow story leading? And while they're waiting on those things to open up to put Jade into something, you've got to have your other women involved in something. They start this big outsiders versus original storyline, which essentially ties up your main event scene. You've got Saraya, Toni Storm, Ruby Soho, Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, all tied up in one story. So it's not like you can just about face pull a Vince McMahon and pull people out of that. So I think it's Tony trying to like wait, but at the same time, not kill stories that are already in motion to kind of placate one talent. I do think there's the scheduling of talent and things coming in and things going out and trying to make everything work seamlessly that is maybe like putting her on the back burner in certain ways where they're waiting for that big story. Because if you look at it, man, Jade is so ready for a big opponent, because her biggest opponents that she's faced right now, she faced Nyla Rose and Thunder Rosa in a 3-way back in September of 2021. She was in the TBS tournament semifinal against Thunder Rosa in December of 2021. Then the TBS tournament final against Ruby Soho was January of 2022. And then she had that TBS title match against Nyla Rose at Full Gear in November of 2022. So that's really it. Everybody else, not to shit on anyone, but a lot of the other people she's faced are up and comers. You know, the Willow Nightingales, the Sky Blues, the Anna Jays. There's a lot of Red Velvet. There's a lot of those. She is ready. Now, we've talked about how they're handling her. I do have a clip from Conan, great booking mind. He was talking on his Keeping It 100 podcast about the handling of Jade. I thought it was kind of interesting.
I don't know. She needs to be in like a feud. You know what I'm saying? She's just running over everybody. She should have beaten this girl quicker. I thought it was, I don't know if you saw this, but did you see when they went to a commercial? She actually picked her up outside the ring, press slammed her over her head, and walked up the stairs and threw her in the ring and like hot shotted her on the top rope. That was really cool and showed her strength and core strength.
Right.
But she needs to be like in a feud. You know what I'm saying? Right. She's become redundant.
Redundant.
Yeah,
I feel like
that's the word.
A key word.
Yeah, and I think that the challenge too, like we mentioned, he mentioned going too long with Red Velvet. Like that's the balance here. Like if she's being taken to the limit, and I wouldn't say the limit, but she was selling for Red Velvet. I think at this point, if she's doing these matches, you might as well go all in and have her squash people. And you mentioned that main storyline. She is an AEW original. Why is she not involved in this? Just because she's holding that mid-card title doesn't have to be defended in that time. But I guess obviously that shoehorns the booking into they can't lose at all because she's undefeated. But that's also, you're booking yourself into these corners. Maybe she has to lose. Make it happen where she loses in some dastardly way where someone gets one over, and then make it a huge thing. I'm not saying use a taser like Scott Hall, but there's creative ways for people to lose. And then when you lose that undefeated streak, there's freedom to do a lot more shit. Like really, once you lose the undefeated streak, there's a freedom to really book dynamic stories where like maybe one week she fucking loses and it's just like you build sympathy towards the character. It's hard to connect to someone who's on your screen for a minute and a half every week. She's impressive, but it's hard for people to connect, especially if you're tuning into Dynamite as a casual fan. She stands out, but then you quickly forget because there's other people stealing the show. They have to showcase her and make her feel like she's just as important as everybody else.
Yeah, 100%. And if they, they're giving a lot of spotlight to this originals versus outsiders storyline. If that's really all that you're going to give time to on Dynamite, you got to put her in that storyline somehow. And maybe this is just us fantasy booking. Maybe they're smarter than us and they have that. And that's what they're waiting on, is because honestly, man, it kind of writes itself. If you really think about it, Ruby's kind of riding that fence right now. If Ruby goes with the outsiders, Saraya, Ruby, Toni Storm, and then you bring someone in like a Mercedes, like a Naomi into this company and she aligns, and then you feel like the AEW originals are outnumbered, they need help. Maybe a Toni Storm and Saraya cost Jade the title. Then you put that TBS title on a Toni Storm, on a Ruby Soho. They've screwed Jade out of this dominant reign. She joins. Then it all makes sense. Then we can forgive what we perceive as bad booking. But you always want to see where the story goes. You want to be patient. But I think when you have your top star or one of your top female stars tweeting and deleting about not being happy with the way the bag, they're fumbling the bag, I think patience is over, man. It's time to make a move.
Yeah, and before we move on to topic number 2, the other thing is you mentioned wait and see approach with AEW. I think there's enough of historical reference we can look at in other situations. We mentioned Wardlow, but the House of Black, you can go down a list of things that they've dropped the ball on.
Yes.
Where she's seeing that too. I'm sure that people are unhappy if we're watching it from our part. You see guys build all this momentum. They have that moment. They win a championship. Even Hangman Page's that long storytelling that wrote itself. And I know a lot of it was done outside the walls of AEW. They built it outside in New Japan, Ring of Honor, and it got built up to a point where it was just like built on being the elite.
Right.
But that story with Hangman, once he won that title, it felt like he was put on ice. Like he was champion, but he was secondary to everything else going on because they didn't have a plan. He had defenses against Adam Cole. He had defense against Lance Archer. People see that. So
Yep.
I just don't see Jade. I don't see them having a bigger plan. I think right now they are trying right now to figure out what to do. And you would think that there'd be some loyalty on her end because they took a chance on her. They molded her and she has, various projects tied up in AEW, but no one could be more immersed in AEW than Cody Rhodes was. And he left too. So don't think Jade won't leave. I mean, bag money speaks for everything. And, but if they blink and they try to call her bluff, she's gone. Like I think she's ready-made, tailor-made for a main event slot in WWE. And she deserves it too. You know what I mean? Like even if all goes well and they book her strong, she still could leave. And that's her prerogative. I think that might be the best career path. Cause I think also her style and her work rate speaks to more WWE. And I just think WWE, they would use her in a big way. I can just see the WrestleMania entrance with the full CGI. So like it kind of is already in my brain.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, she's tailor-made for Stanford. But the one thing I will say, we talk about money. I don't think it's about money with her. I know money is the end-all, be-all. Oh, it's about making money. She doesn't need money. She's came out and said that. It's not about her husband is a professional baseball player. She makes tons of money on her side gigs, her side hustles, modeling, all of that. She's always kind of been up front. Like it's about respect. It's about opportunity. Not to say WWE wouldn't give that to her. They would give her great opportunity, way more eyes on her. But I always think back to that. She did a really great interview with Chris Jericho on Talk is Jericho podcast. And she had to make a decision, WWE or AEW. Mark Henry actually recruited her while he still worked for WWE. And she said the thing that made her choose AEW was WWE showed a lack of enthusiasm at her tryout. Her talent was questioned as far as like how badly she wanted it. They looked at her having a child, like a 2-3-year-old child, as a detriment. And she's quoted as saying, "They wanted me," meaning WWE. The problem they found that they had mixed feelings about was that I don't need wrestling. I don't need to do this. A lot of people, especially at the trial, at the PC, they need this. Like this is how they feed their families. I don't need this. She talked about having to cut ties with all of her third-party business situations if she went to WWE. And she said, I don't have to relocate. I felt at home with AEW and I could call the owner of the company and talk to him and he knew my name. So I think I think she does have a sense of pride working for AEW and helping build this company. But if you keep mishandling her and not giving her that spotlight, she will leave. Money be damned. It's not about money. She will leave just because she feels disrespected.
100%. And shout out to that dude, BP, one of my favorite second basemen, Brandon Phillips. Awesome. Let's move to story number 2.
Yes, story number 2.
So how long do you think we would wait to have Vince back in the stories for the big three? And of course, we had to pop him on number 2. He put a $9 billion price tag on WWE as an entity, everything that goes into it. And Vince McMahon's name's been thrown all over the news. He's been a fire starter, if you will, just at the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023. I feel like everyone, and it felt like Wrestling Tonight was just going to be the Vince McMahon hour.
Yeah.
But luckily we moved away from it. But how could we ignore this? And Bloomberg reported that WWE's received multiple offers to take the company private since McMahon listed his asking price of $9 billion. That is above the appraisal. We've talked about the worth of WWE, but the suitors that are out there, that price tag doesn't have them balk at it. So, we dropped that Wrestling Tonight, probably our highest rated show, the reactionary show to the potential and maybe eventual sale to Saudi Arabia of having, them, the Saudi trade fund, whatever you want to call them. They have an official name. The Sovereign Wealth Fund, I guess, is the official term.
Yeah.
If they took control, we talked hypothetical about booking, but as far as the price tag, $9 billion is a lot of money, but that kind of narrows it down to really just 2 suitors, right, Chad? There's only 2 that can get out there and pay that money.
Yeah. So $9 billion, the $9 billion valuation of this company represents a 36% premium on WWE's market value, which is $6.6 billion. So you're paying well above what the market says it's worth, which when they announced this, there are reports coming out that Comcast, Fox, this $9 billion price tag has essentially put them out of the running. They're not going to drop $9 billion on this because those type of companies, Comcast, Fox, they're in the business of making money. When you front $9 billion on a company, it's going to be a lot longer that you will see a net profit off of that company because essentially you're paying back. It's going to take a lot longer to get in the black, get out of the red, get into the black. Plus with Comcast, Fox, and a lot of these media conglomerates that are tied into cable and streaming, I think there's a hesitancy, at least the reports are saying there's a hesitancy with these companies because the uncertainty of the future of cable and streaming. We all know cord cutting. A lot of people aren't paying for cable. So it's like you drop $9 billion to bring in this company. How long is it going to take? Now, obviously, the 2 people that have kind of bubbled to the surface of being the front runners to buy this is Endeavor and Saudi Arabia, because I think Endeavor would have to borrow money, but there's kind of an allure with Endeavor of owning UFC and owning WWE and all the cross pollination you could do with those 2 companies.
Mm-hmm.
But with Saudi Arabia, I think it's bigger than just, they're not in it to make money out of the gate like an Endeavor and all the other potential suitors are. Saudi Arabia, it's more about, there's a different philosophy of buying this company. It's not about just turning a profit. It's political optics. It's becoming an influential power player in Western business. Saudi Arabia is willing to take a big risk without getting that immediate profit, more so than any other suitor out there. I think Saudi Arabia is playing the long game here.
Yeah, and it's also, you mentioned public relations. Sometimes you can't pay for that good publicity, it's the good faith that people have in the WWE brand. And for the people, you're almost masking like an indoctrination to what they do on their end and how they feel about certain things. And they're going to use WWE as a vehicle to drive their ideology. And you can pay a certain amount of money for that. So that's why they're willing to pay over market price. And I'm sure they're sitting in a room like, it would make us money elsewhere. Like WWE probably wouldn't make us a profit, but elsewhere, as far as business, people will be more willing to do business with an entity that owns WWE because, like I said, they're trusted, that people have faith in them, and it's just masking behind. There's almost like the Wizard of Oz behind a curtain. They now have this brand to stand in front of that has good American faith that people have built. You're always going to associate with Vince McMahon. There's always going to be those that are like uneducated on the situation. They're going to assume it's owned by McMahon when you have others pulling the string. So I agree. I think it really is a different philosophy on their end. I think there's it could be ground shaking. We don't want to get into the weeds about what we talked about last week or the weeks and prior to that, because the effects are endless as far as where it would go if Saudi Arabia took control of the company. But I mean, we're talking money that you and I will combined, our children's children, we're not going to see this amount of money. So it's hard for us to even talk about what the right decision is. But for $3 billion, if you can have it stay within the States and have it under like the helm of UFC and watch the growth of what they've had since Endeavor has been under control, it's a no-brainer to me as far as you look at it from the side of Saudi Arabia. But from WWE's end, to sell it and keep it under like, your umbrella of trusting that someone's going to be doing the right thing. And for political optics on WWE's end, we talked about all the ramifications. People want to boycott the company and they don't want to watch. If it's Endeavor, it's business as usual. It's just a different figurehead. And you mentioned the crossover UFC. That's money to be made elsewhere. Where on a UFC pay-per-view where triple the amount of people watching SmackDown are watching a UFC pay-per-view, you could just pop up a graphic for SmackDown or Raw or hype up whatever you want. That's advertisement that you'd be paying out the ass for. So now it's under the same umbrella.
I think there's risks involved with both, because I do think there is a strong contingent of fans out there in mixed martial arts, in UFC, that if they're seeing a lot of cross promotion shit for WWE, they will hate that. There is a lot of like, that's that fake stuff. There's still in the mixed martial arts community, there is a lot of that there. Now so I think there's a lot of pushback as how would the UFC fan base kind of like seeing that. I don't know how that would go. I think Endeavor is the safest one if you want to keep it stateside, because they're not tied in with like a television station. If I was Vince McMahon or the higher ups at WWE, I would almost be hesitant to go with a Comcast or a Fox, because look how WCW turned out, man. They were tied in when the person owning the station you are on owns your company, you become a cost cutting tactic where they can, if they want to get out of the wrestling business and they own you, they just cancel your show and then it's done. I'm not saying that would happen. There's so much money that WWE brings in, but that does have to be a fear down the line of like, the channel we're on now owns us. And we saw how it worked out with Turner and all of that back in, 2001. But I think Saudi Arabia is going to be a major, major player. I really do. I think outside of Vince McMahon or the people making the final call, having a moral enlightening moment where they're like, we don't want to do business with these people. I think that's the only thing that's going to keep WWE from going there, is the fallout with the fan base, which I don't think there will be that big of a fallout. I think there might be some, but fans are just going to tune in. But I really think Saudi Arabia, if you look at the way they've done business over the last couple years, they're trying to buy Formula One. They offered $20 million, so much higher than the value of that company, just to get into a big westernized global sport. They're trying to buy another soccer team. They're trying to start another soccer league. They're really willing to spend above market value to get into these situations. So I think they're going to throw the bank at WWE, and it's going to be up to the Vince McMahons of the world to make the call of, we don't want that amount of money, because our ethics. We don't want to. I just don't think that's what Vince is thinking. He wants the bag. He wants the biggest bag, and I think Saudi Arabia is going to be the place to offer the biggest bag.
It just depends on what his legacy, what he wants his legacy to be. Well, does he want WWE to be around, or does he care about it being around well after he's gone? Yeah, is his legacy that he turned a whatever 3,000% profit from when he first took over the company? Yeah, I mean that's what it is. Obvious choice, take the deal. But for me, looking at Vince as this character and this person that has been passionate. I mean, reading the dirt sheets from 95, 96, now 98 in Shot Nostalgia, live on Friday, by the way, check it out in Turnbuckle Tavern. There is this thing where he feels a kinship to what he built. And I can't imagine you'd be okay handing it over wrapped in a nice little box and say, here you go. And what they could do is they could step on it, light it on fire. They could throw it in the garbage. They could do whatever they want to it. There has to be a level of trust that you feel like they're going to do right by what you built. It's like handing over a care package or your child. Like, this is someone that you feel has to do right by them, because it's not just about the immediate. We talk about the immediate booking decisions. Oh, will Sami Zayn be able to be in the main event? That's not even the conversation. The conversation should be 10, 15, 30 years from now, WrestleMania 100, like well after we're gone. This should still be going as a machine. And that would always seem like a foregone conclusion. That WWE would be this thing that kept on rolling, and you have your kids' kids and your great grandkids. Like, I remember WrestleMania 5, and now it's WrestleMania 95. That should exist, but that puts into question when you have and at the end of the day, when you sell it to anybody, they could do what they want to. They could just make it a digital thing on an anthology package and just say, we're done making live content. There's plenty of hours. We're going to sell all of it. And you could just sell historical reference things. But if you want this to continue, you have to make it sure it's being done right. And I don't think it's guaranteed. I really don't. I think you could really, in the immediate, yeah, you're going to see we see Crown Jewel, people tune in. Fuck yeah, the Logan Paul match of Roman Reigns was amazing. Like that, in the immediate, people they will swallow it. But in the long run, if booking starts to be really shitty and they start doing questionable things, I don't know, you might alienate a fan base, and then all of a sudden it disappears. You can't get that TV deal. No one wants to do business with them. And then what the hell are you doing?
No, you're that's all possibilities. I'm definitely right there with you, because another big thing is the fallout with talent. If fans see talent leaving, mass exodus of WWE because of a tie with Saudi Arabia, then fans will get pissed. I do think it's interesting though when you talk about Endeavor being a possible buyer with UFC. Longtime UFC fans, there is a difference in the Zuffa era of UFC and the Endeavor era. Endeavor has definitely kind of oversaturated the market with UFC. Like pre Endeavor, Zuffa felt a little more special. Events felt a little more big. It was a mom and pop shop. It was handled with very close, a lot more passion went into it. Not say that UFC's not successful. They're obviously successful, but I do think there's a little bit of the fan base out there that's like, man, they just churn this stuff out. It's like a machine now. Yep. There's not as much special build behind it. So there's that with Endeavor. And then when you talk about the Comcast and the Foxes and those TV companies that could come in, media companies that could come in and potentially buy WWE, if you look at WWE's revenue in 2022, they made $1.3 billion in 2022, but half of that money came from their media rights fees. If Comcast or Fox own them and it's on their station, they're not going to be getting fees. They're not going to be getting those TV deals because we own it. It's on our stuff.
Right.
So you cut that in half. How's that play into that $9 billion price tag when you're only earning 600 million instead of that 1.3 a year, because you don't have TV rights deals anymore in play because you're the one fronting the bill? How does that play into getting your money back? So there's so many moving parts here. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, I think the television deal stuff plays a huge part, like as you mentioned, because that is the bargaining chip that they have every time it comes up. Like, all right, who wants it? You have all our content. We're the only, sporting leagues they have their seasons and they end. WWE is this sequential TV that rolls on. Mondays and Fridays, you're guaranteed to get WWE content. Whether it's good, that's, subjective to how you feel. But they are rolling out content. And like you mentioned with the Endeavor, and I'm not as familiar with the UFC stuff, but sounds like content just for the sake of content sometimes is just as valuable as just content that is good in a short period of time. Like just having the reliability of putting things out and having updated episodes and new characters, and whether it's good or not, that doesn't really matter. It's just printing it out, just like you said, like a machine, keep it rolling. And that's what Raw has been. They just fill 3 hours with whatever the hell they want to put on. And there's bits and pieces that have been good, and we've seen an improvement in the product. But for a while, it just felt like a rote thing. You just kind of go on, you have 3 hours, it's Monday night, it's Raw, nothing eventful happens, rinse, repeat next week, and then you continue the story. So there's something valuable about the reliability that WWE has that a lot of entertainment sources don't have. That there's no break, there's no hiatus. It's just continuing rolling. Since 1993, we've had an episode of Raw, whether it's like preempted or put on a Saturday. That's but every week there's been a Raw. Westminster Dog Show be damned. There's going to be a Raw. So there's a big value in that. But if you take away, as you mentioned, baking in half of $1.3 billion, that's a lot of goddamn money that goes into the media rights. Peacock and NBC were willing to take a huge loss to just have the rights to WWE. If you're not having anyone bid on that, where's the money coming in? And then you have to change a lot of how you do business, because a lot of what's been changed with the pay-per-view market is it's, the subscription-based thing. Now they might have to rely on buy rates and having people buy pay-per-views again. And I don't think that's going backwards. So I don't know. It's very, very convoluted. It's not as cut and dry as people try to make it out to be.
No, and that's the scary thing, man. When half of your income is off of media rights deals and you're forking over $9 billion to buy this thing, and that a major avenue of income is going to be off the table because you are the one fronting it on Peacock or wherever you push it, NBC or one of your affiliates. Like, when that money is off the table, how do you make your money back? So that's why I think we're hearing these reports of the Comcasts and the Foxes being out of the running to buy this thing, is because it's like, fuck, if we fork over $9 billion, how are we ever going to make that back?
Yeah.
Like you said, it would change business. And when you have a successful business that you've kind of found the way to make your money, and now this new buyer is going to have to change that business up, that's when I, as a fan, get worried, because I'm like, well, what's that mean for me? What's that mean for how I consume it? What I have to pay for? Like, I don't know, man. It's very interesting. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of potential suitors with pros and cons. So the sell's coming too. Everyone's still saying this is coming in the next 3 months.
If it's not done already, by the way. Paperwork takes a long time to be drafted. We could just be all talking and conjecture, but it already could be sewn up.
Yep.
Just getting all the legal things, dotting I's and crossing T's type of thing. So
that's the most interesting part of this story. Is before, when you would talk about the potential sale of WWE, it was all this, if it ever happens, when it ever happens. Now we know it's coming. And when it happens, it's probably going to be the biggest story of the year.
Yeah, and then we'll continue to cover this on Wrestling Tonight. I'm sure the Raw Down Boys are going to be talking about it in depth on Thursdays. Make sure you guys check them out. Talking about WrestleMania season. This is everybody for Christmas season for wrestling, but for them especially, this is the hot spot.
Yep.
But we have a hot spot for AEW with one of the biggest events of the year coming up, and that's big story number 3 here. AEW Revolution from the Chase Center in San Francisco. This is a really big event that's been building up. It's been much better built than on the pay-per-views in the past, especially going back to All Out. I know Full Gear was a little bit better, but All Out had that. I mean, we were on here just ranting and raving. We don't have a goddamn title match like a week before the show. But this is not the case here. This historical reference for this. This is the first pay-per-view to be broadcast on ESPN in Australia, New Zealand, the Pacific Islands. So it's a huge international thing for them, showcasing this. And don't think that AEW is not going to go all out. They always go, pun intended, they go all out on these shows and give wrestling fans a bang for their buck. Whether people complain about the length, that's on you. You're getting a lot of content squished into 5.5 hours with the pre-show all baked in. And this is what AEW is built on. These amazing events that they put on quarterly at this point, 5 times a year. This is exciting, man. We have a lot of card to break down.
Yeah, and let's be honest, if they gave us a tight, perfectly packaged 3-hour pay-per-view, the same amount of people that complain about the length of their current pay-per-views would be complaining about having to pay $50 for a 3-hour show. I mean, that's just the wrestling fan. You're going to complain about something. If I'm forking out $50, I want more bang for my buck. Right now, this drops on Monday. We're a little under a week out from the show. And as it stands right now, we have 7 matches announced, which is, I think in the past, there's been anywhere from like 10 to 13 announced. So I'm sure there's going to be some announced this week on Dynamite and Rampage leading up to the show. But what do you think about where we're at, Ace, with the card as it stands?
I think it's because it's been better built. All the stories that are inside of this, if you look at all the matches, and we'll go through them to preview some of them, I think the stories have been more dynamic. They've had more length to them. It hasn't been just thrown together 2 weeks out. If you look at every single one of these matches, there's been history for the last 3 months, really. If you look at every program that's been going on here, we can even start with the trios title. I'll let you lead the way on this with the Elite and the House of Black. This is the one that's most thrown together, but there's history here because of the tournament, because they've both been trios for a long period of time. And this is a match we've all been clamoring for. If they pull the trigger and put the titles on House of Black, I'd be very ecstatic, because I think the best thing for the Elite would be to get away from those trios titles. And we talked about that last week with Kenny. He needs to be doing something separate of the Bucks. I think he would benefit greatly from doing that. But this match has the potential to steal the show. Obviously, we're probably going to say that about multiple matches on this card. But this match itself, this has been coming for a long time. It feels like we've been, you guys specifically on the flagship, doing the work to get it to this point. And now it's time to put emphasis on House of Black and see what they can really do as far as being in the spotlight.
Yeah, for me, you have to, this goes one of 2 ways that can be a success. Either the Bucks and Kenny somehow win, but the feud continues in our week-to-week television, and they draw this out for a big moment at All Out. I don't think we have that in store.
No.
I think you have to, the other option is you put the belts on House of Black here and send the Elite in a different direction, which I hope is how they go. I'm not All Out. I meant Double or Nothing before. I think you putting the belts on House of Black would be very, very, very servicing fan service there. There'd be a lot of good fan service if you put it on House of Black. I think it would be interesting. It would open up the possibilities of what the Elite have in store next, what you have in store for Kenny, what you have in store for the Bucks. I think the big mistake here, and I think everyone thinks it, is if the Elite just go over clean. I think at that point, if you finally put House of Black in a monumental match on a pay-per-view with some of your top talent and you have them get beat clean, I think that is a massive mistake. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing here, and it's not just House of Black, I think getting the titles off the Elite is important, because the division, with all the uproar of obviously what happened with the Elite situation when they first won the titles at All Out, things had been very segmented, where the titles had to be changed, and Death Triangle had, and they had the best of 7. All that stuff spawned from the reaction of what had to happen. But I think in lieu of that, the consequence has been the division hasn't felt established. And I think a lot of the trios that we had lined up have now evaporated. And now it's time, I think, to have them have their own separate part of the card. I don't want tag teams, and I know the Elite are historically a trio, but Kenny Omega is a main eventer. The Young Bucks are a legendary tag team. They should be in their divisions. Have the trios be established with House of Black being the big bads with people chasing them. I think there's a lot of talent on the roster that can have trios. Think about Top Flight and AR Fox. I would love to see that match get highlighted rather than have it mixed in with everything else. And, there's ways to put it through the rest of the card. You could feud Malachi separately with someone else in a trio, find a way to get him on Dynamite every week. But I think right now the trios division, as immersive as we thought it would be, hasn't been that at all. And it's not their fault because of everything that went down. I think right now it feels like it's just thrown together. But I think this is the opportunity to move it away from all that chaos and have its own little segment on the show where House of Black leading the way and being important. I think that's, at the end of the day, I feel confident that Brody King, Buddy Matthews, and Malachi Black can be draws and they could be main event stars. Never mind just as a trio, but all of them could be potential world champions down the line. I feel that confident in their talent. So
yeah, I'm 100%. The only wrench in this is that ever present FTR and CM Punk situation. If that's not all just conjecture, and if there's really some stuff behind that, that could play a major factor into how this match is booked. Like if they have that in store for us somewhere down the line, and that is used as a contract kind of bartering chip for FTR, then I think that's the only thing that would make the Bucks winning make sense from their perspective. But at the same time, I don't think you can't screw over House of Black because of that. So this is tricky, man, because you have that CM Punk Elite versus Punk and FTR match that a lot of people, Dax Harwood included, has kind of alluded to that. So that's some of the intrigue of this match, is the possibilities of what's next.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part, but how long are we going to wait for that story, and why hold up the trios titles hostage? So I think that story is bigger than the championships itself.
I agree.
You could have that 6-man tag on any pay-per-view and people would tune in. It would definitely hit,
and it would strengthen the division. It would strengthen the division
100%. But I just fear holding that title hostage on a what if makes it feel.
I'm with you, because I think I meant like it would strengthen the division, because you would have House of Black holding these titles, super interesting, and then you have the Elite feuding with these two guys in the division, but without the titles on the line. Then you have two major storylines within that division. I think it elevates it where it needs to be.
You're right, because every singles match is not a world title match. You're right.
Right.
You need to have a trios match that has importance without the titles on the line, and maybe they get Rankins be damned. I know they've disappeared, but one of those teams, whoever comes out on top, would eventually have a shot. And then you move on to a different story once the Elite and FTR and Punk tell their story. But we do have other matches in the card. And we mentioned before the AEW Women's World Championship tied up in this Freelancers versus AEW Originals feud. Jamie Hayter, Saraya, Ruby Soho. This, again, I mean, Jamie Hayter has been the beneficiary of everything that went down with Thunder Rosa. She's, obviously Toni Storm was the interim champion. Jamie Hayter was white hot, probably the hottest act, not just in the women's division, but she was getting huge pops. Tony Khan listened to the fans and they put the title on her. Have they dropped the ball as far as momentum? No, like they've done, but I think we talked about this gang warfare type of storyline has made everyone feel a little bit bogged down. I'm happy to see the championship being defended here. And Saraya is in a big spot. People forget. I mean, she came back. She is someone that is a huge star, and she doesn't feel that way. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's just me, but as far as like her impact, I thought she would have a much bigger impact on the show, and it just feels like she rolled right into the fold in a not such a good way. I feel like she doesn't stand out like I thought she would have, especially being away from the ring for that long.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of. She doesn't feel big and monumental to me either, but I think a little bit of that is probably her still getting her feet under her in the ring. If she was a Mercedes or a Bailey or someone who could come right into a major physical feud, then I feel like she'd probably make more of an impact. But I think they've handled her with kids' gloves as far as getting her involved physically, which has hurt her. That being said, I honestly think Saraya could probably walk out with the title. I think the reason there is a three-way is doing it in a way that won't hurt Jamie Hayter.
Ruby eating pins. We got Ruby eating pins, I think, right?
Ruby eating a pin. There's that, or there's Ruby siding with Saraya. They both turn on
Interesting.
Jamie Hayter. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on the table. I don't think Jamie Hayter leaves Revolution with that belt. She totally could, but I think that three-way element makes me scratch my head on how they're going to handle this booking.
Yeah, we have right now a clear as day, what they're called the freelancers. We have a clear as day AEW original, like I guess you can call Hater, and then Ruby Soho, who's riding the fence. So it does lend itself to tell the story a little bit well. And I think this is going to be advancing more of the storytelling. Where the title lands, who knows? But I think the bigger story is this eventual Ruby turn. I think that's what we're going to get. And we'll see where they go from there. I think the original plan, as you guys talked about on the flagship, was probably Mercedes being involved, and that'd be ideal. But they've pivoted. They probably just gave Ruby the script of what Mercedes was going to do. And you know what? They're moving on with the story, and they're putting emphasis on the women's division. And this match, talk about work rate, all these women are going to go at it, and a triple threat match is always fun. And it leads for different possibilities. It would not shock me to see Saraya win. Only person I see shocking would be Ruby winning. That would be the only shocking.
That would be the shocker. And honestly, this is one of those matches too where I think it's going to say a lot about what we have in store moving forward as far as the way they've handled the women's division. If you just see Jamie Hayter go in and win clean, I'm a big fan of, clean finishes. I love that. But in a situation like this, if the amount of attention this Outsiders versus AEW original storyline should have in the women's division, I think a big, massive turn here to screw Hayter out of this title, it makes me feel a little more confident that AEW is going to make this storyline a big deal moving forward rather than just Hayter winning and then on to the next one. I feel like we need a big angle in this match, not just a clean win.
And this may tie Jade in as well. Like we were talking about needing Jade. This could absolutely be the platform for Jade to get involved if Ruby screws over Jamie, and then could be interesting if they do it right. But we also have Chris Jericho, Ricky Starks with, interestingly enough, the graphic was two different graphics. So now the updated graphic says JAS is banned from ringside. But before that, if you saw it posted on Rampage, it said everyone is banned from ringside. So may just be semantics and worry about wording. I think they're going to have, because that JAS is banned, which means that anybody else can come out. Has me feeling we're going to see an Action Andretti heel turn joining JAS. That's what I feel. Jericho has been very obviously confident in his ability. He gave him that big win on Dynamite. I think Action Andretti, instead of being that lucky go hard face, I think they're going to have him work under the wing of Chris Jericho on TV, and I think he's probably going to join. That was my first thought, and I think we're going to get. I know everybody's doing it.
I know JAS is turning into like 1998 NWO where everyone's joining it. I don't know how this is going to go. I will say Jericho filed a trademark for Jericho not too long ago. And Paul White has came out and said he's getting back into ring shape, and he will be wrestling in March because I guess he has new knee replacements he got made, and he feels better than he ever has. So I'm like, I don't know how he could come into play, but it just seems weird that Jericho filed for Jericho. Paul White gives a report that he's going to be back competing in the ring in March. Does he come into play in this match somehow?
Interesting. I'd never heard that about the Jericho thing. That is very interesting. I would love, listen, full disclosure, I do not want to see Paul White as an active competitor on the roster.
I do not either.
If he had to be, would love to see the St. Valentine's Day Massacre thing where he debuted in WWE. And Tony Khan's a student of the game. Have him come up through the ring and beat the shit out of Ricky Starks. You know what? I'd pop for that. So
It would be different. It would be like, what is going on? I don't want to see Paul White if he has to be involved. If he's just the guy who comes in and lays dudes out while Jericho does his thing, maybe it could work. But I just, a couple nuggets of info, Jericho trademark, Paul White giving interviews about a March return. I smell something fishy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what I like better. I mean, maybe Action Andretti needs an edge to him because eventually that 1, 2, 3 kid, lightning kid thing falls off like that.
It does. It
Wears
but
off. I don't know if it's a heel turn though. I don't know.
The only reason I wouldn't like that is I like that he has that over Jericho. I love that he got that win, and then to just have him become the lapdog and work for the guy that you got to win over. I don't know.
Yeah, it could undo a lot of the good you've done, but we also have a feud that's been building, whether it's on or off TV. This feud has been building for a very long time between the aforementioned Wardlow, as we mentioned, with his, the lack of momentum against Samoa Joe. TNT Championship was bounced around a bit. I think Darby Allin did a good job of bringing it back up to prominence in between, getting people to recognize, hey, this is an important title. And that was much needed. It was like a shot in the arm, which Darby Allin is for every card he's on. He's one of those guys that sets the pace. And he honestly put the TNT title back on target about how it feels on the show. And I know I'm speaking for myself here and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you feel the same way. I mean, it needed Darby Allin to get back to this and bridge the gap to get Samoa Joe and Wardlow ready to be in the ring together.
Yeah, I think Darby's the best TNT champion they've had. Every time he has that belt, it's felt big. It's felt important. He does what that belt should be, and that is constantly being defended on our television. And so I think him being the bridge for this, I always expected this feud to come back around, and now it feels a little bigger. I'm actually enjoying the little bit of storytelling. I loved the sit-down interview with Wardlow and JR. Two big hosses going at it. I think that this is a fun match, and I'm glad the TNT title is being featured on a pay-per-view in a big way.
Yeah, and we'll see what they do booking-wise with Joe, with Ring of Honor starting up again. I know that they started taping. We'll talk about that in the quick hitters. Is Joe going to be featured on Dynamite? I know he has a Ring of Honor lineage guy, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to be featured on Dynamite because he's just as much an AEW guy. He's been on TV quite frequently, so it depends on what they want with Joe. I don't know what I'd prefer, but I do like that they both have meaningful stories, and these are two big guys getting in there, and this is a huge moment for Wardlow, and this is a second test. If he gets the TNT title back, you have to have connective story following this, because what they did last time is you drop the confetti, he wins the TNT championship, it feels big, and then what? Like, we need something else for Wardlow. So if they're going to pull the trigger and have him beat Joe and you're not going to continue this feud, have something planned for Wardlow.
If it was me, I think it's there for his first right out. If Wardlow beats Joe, either right after it or on the following Dynamite, you have Miro return. I mean, I'm all in on some Miro Wardlow if done correctly. It's he needs his next feud. I don't want to go into this open challenge with mid-carders that we know aren't going to beat Wardlow. I want someone threatening him right after he's done with Joe. So we'll see how that turns out.
And then eventually, as far as long-term storytelling goes, I want to see a program again with Max and Wardlow, because that story's not done. Like, he squashed him. I get that. MJF character kayfabe wise, how is he okay with Wardlow being on the roster? They're sharing a locker room together. There has to be some story that continues there, and the world title's there. Why is Wardlow not targeting MJF? I already beat you. I have a claim with the world title. So maybe this is the bridge to get there and making the title feel just as important as the world title. So
that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one to come back around to, though, because I almost feel like when you come back around to that, it's almost like coronation time for Wardlow to get that big belt. And I don't know if you should go into that really soon, because that story's there. Whenever you're ready to pull the trigger on it, it's built in. Mm-hmm. But it's tricky because
Wardlow can't lose. I agree with you. He needs to beat it. He needs to beat MJF.
And when is his time to be the champion? So
Yeah, it felt like he was ready prior. Like now,
No, yeah.
obviously he's been cooled off, but if he would have won the championship, in the summer, I don't think people would have balked an eye. Now he feels lesser than, and that's AEW's booking fault. But we'll see how they get there. I'm excited for this match, as you mentioned. It's a long-term program, two great guys that are just entertaining as hell. So would love if Miro got involved. But we also have Hangman and Moxley in a Texas death match. This feud has been never ending, but just as entertaining, dude. I've been really enjoying these two guys, and we mentioned having, a 6-man tag match, building up a division without the title involved. This makes the world title feel even more important, by proxy of this match, because these two guys, former world champions, Jon Moxley, a multiple time world champion, Hangman had his run not too long ago either. They're going at it in this Texas death match. And the format of the Texas death match, some people aren't fans of it because of just the nature of the redundancy of having to be pinned and then down for a 10 count. They've done the Texas death match. Jon Moxley, I think, has been involved in pretty much all of them. Oh no,
Yeah,
Jon Moxley and Hangman have been involved in all of them. So we have at this point, I think this is the end of the feud, and maybe Moxley goes off to do his vacation. That's never happened. Finally go catch some, fly
the
fishing.
elusive fishing trip.
But either way, I mean, I could see this going either way and not hurting either one of these guys. I mean, we've had the back and forth. That's the beautiful part about having these matches where these guys feel equivalent to each other. After Hangman's been knocked out by Moxley, it just has spawned from there, and Hangman got his win back and all of that. And I think this match is gonna be good, and it may surprise people. Clearly, Jon Moxley is gonna bleed. We're gonna see some weapons. We're gonna see all that shenanigery, which is I love on a card. It needs that. We talk about pace setting. Sometimes you need that bloodbath, that type of hardcore match to get you refocused on what's happening on the screen. So I'm really excited for this sub main event because I consider it that.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one, and I think this whole feud and the match culminating the feud has all been a service to rebuilding and revitalizing Hangman. Like when Hangman left, when Hangman kind of left the world title picture after having that belt, I feel like he was squandered a little bit. Like I feel like his reign, even I feel like fans didn't. He lost a little bit, and with the whole Punk situation and floundering after that, and I think this is Mox being like, we need to put some heat back on this guy, put some onus. Like Hangman, it should be looked at as one of the company's main eventers, and he wasn't looked at like that. And I think this feud and this match has been a way of Mox giving him some shine, giving him the rub, and trying to get him back to the place he was.
Absolutely. And you said it best. There's really nothing else to say about it's a rehabilitation project on
100%.
Hangman's part, because he was a main eventer that felt lesser than after losing the title, and that sucked because they did such a great job of making him up to that level. But moving on to the tag team championship, we had some discussion in the chat. Obviously, the defending champs, the Guns, taking on the Acclaim, the program's built in. Then we had the Battle Royal last week where Jarrett and Jay Lethal got the win. We also have the Casino Battle Royal with some of the teams, and most of the teams are repeat teams. You go down the list. Best Friends, who came down to the final team, they're also in the Casino Battle Royal. Mike Bennett, Matt Taven, Preston Vance and Rouge, Claudio and Wheeler Yuta. We got Reynolds and Silver, the Lucha Brothers.
Not a fan of that.
So it's a lot of the same teams, but the dynamic of a Casino Battle Royal is the key word is there's going to be a Joker. So who's the Joker? Is it FTR? Is it going to be somebody different? If it's anyone different, it's a letdown. So let's just start there. But how do you, if it's FTR, that kind of tells me that the Punk stuff's not happening, because if you hold off FTR, that means it's imminent. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if they bring back here and then immediately inject them back into the tag division, because they have unfinished business with the Guns, like, because they were embarrassed by them. They lost to them. Now the Guns are champions. They're mocking them. Of course, you can inject Punk whenever he's ready, but it feels like I don't know. It feels like FTR would have been held off if it's imminent. And if they come back, it kind of puts a bookmark into whatever could have happened with CM Punk and the Elite.
Yeah, I'm with you. If they come back, for me, if you're wanting to keep this whole 4-way in-house with the teams that are involved storyline wise and have history, FTR makes the most sense. But if FTR shows up as the Joker and gets in, I'm with you. Punk isn't imminent. There's just a big question mark with this because it's what's the contract situation with FTR? What's the bargaining going on there? Maybe Tony Khan is trying to get them in that Joker spot to have them as that fourth team. Maybe this whole battle royal situation of teams being put into this match by winning these battle royals, like maybe that's a way to prolong and give Tony time to figure out, like, can we get this deal done with them?
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's just, it makes me wonder. In my gut, I don't think it's going to be FTR, although I think they make the most sense storyline wise. I don't know where they go with this. I hate the fact that the same teams involved in the first battle royal are it's like you get two opportunities to get in. It doesn't make sense to me as much.
Right.
I don't know, man. I love Guns and the Acclaimed, and I like that we're not just getting that rematch. I like that there's a wrinkle in it, but I'm not sure on who this fourth team is going to be. How, because it has to be someone big. I feel like it can't just be, oh, best friends. It can't.
Right.
It can't just be one of the teams we've already seen. Even Aussie Open would feel like, okay, but why? Like,
Yeah.
I feel like fans are expecting a big splash for this fourth entrant. At least I am. And I truly don't know where they're going with this or what makes the most sense.
Yeah, and just to touch on the Jay Lethal and the Jeff Jarrett thing, now that it's been about a week since I've sat on it, like I guess if they're going to be used as a mechanism to someone's taking the pin, and if it's Jarrett, I guess that's fine. That's the way to use them. Just have a level of anger that the roster's so bloated that Jeff Jarrett, even in 2023, has a place on a pay-per-view when it could be another one of these guys that are so goddamn talented. And lessens the blow because House of Black has a prominent match. So don't even imagine how pissed I'd be if House of Black didn't have a match and you have Jarrett on the card. But just reading through the newsletters and watching 1998 WWF, Jarrett was never over. And it's just like, why is this guy still around? I understand he's the utmost professional. He can get heat, but is it good heat? I've never been a fan. It just pisses me off because it reminds me of old Impact days. And that's what I wanted AEW to never be. And when Jarrett first came in, we all talked about the behind the scenes. He was helping secure new arenas and new markets. I love that. That's great. He has a family lineage in Memphis of working buildings, obviously worked with WWF and the WWE, WWF in the time, also as an agent. He has a lot of knowledge to give. But just having him in lieu of somebody else, I was like, what the why? Why Jeff Jarrett? I love Lethal, but why Jarrett? I
get where you're coming from. I'm on the opposite end of this because I've never been a Jeff Jarrett guy, but I've always thought he was an entertaining heel. But I think this is a problem with AEW booking. I am with you, dude. I would much rather see Butcher and Blade in this spot. I would much rather see teams like that. But at the same time, I'm like, dude, that's on Tony to get those teams to a point where it makes sense. Put them in angles where it makes sense. Because if they would have just put Butcher and the Blade or Best Friends into this 4-way at the pay-per-view, I'm like, there's nothing behind it. It's just like you're telegraphing, oh, these are just a couple bodies for the match. Like you have to build them in storyline as a credible person to take that slot. Now, Acclaimed have been feuding back and forth. They had the no DQ match not too long. So they've been feuding with Jarrett.
They made the rap video.
They made the rap video against him. So there's history. Yeah. So that makes sense to me. But there's also an element of, I get what you're saying, man. He's a vet. Get these young guys screen time. But I think there is a delicate balance, and they've played it rather well with Jeff Jarrett. A lot of times it can go the other way and it becomes too much, but there is a delicate balance of putting young guys in there with vets that you can learn from. Now, sometimes I think they put too much attention on veterans, and TNA did that a lot. Like they put a lot of the WCW did that a lot, where it almost like keeps the young guys down. But in this situation, I feel like Jeff has been putting over the Acclaimed. He's been, and I think when you get young teams like the Acclaimed, having those rubbing shoulders with guys with knowledge, people, he can be over, he cannot be over. We're talking about a Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett has history in the business. He knows a lot about the business. I think it's good for young guys to share time with people like that and learn from them. So that's where I come from with Jeff.
No, it's a fair point for sure. And, that's just, I'm bringing in just, I guess, my ill feelings towards the Jeff Jarrett act on screen. So not disputing what he's given to the business and all that.
You're still hot about him and Effie and GCW. That's what it is.
That as well. I mean, that pissed me off, but I just never was entertained by anything he's done. I think he was the worst part of Impact. I thought he was just like a book yourself to be a champion type of champion. Never felt on the level of any world champion, but that's an episode on its own. We can make that a debate question.
yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't, dude. It wouldn't shock me if they put the goddamn titles on with the way they've been booking them. So they may just do it.
Get heat.
Yeah. But I don't know. I would love to see the Guns' reign continue, but the story obviously is layered with FTR, the Acclaimed, and we're asking for textured storytelling, and we're getting it. Just maybe I'm being worked by the Jarrett thing, but I also feel like most of the people say he has go-away heat, but heat is heat. You're there, and people are going to boo him. So I guess even the diehards are going to boo him.
And just like we talked about with the 3-way women's match, that seeing that this is a 4-way leads me to believe that the Guns will retain, and it's a way for them to retain without the Acclaim taking a loss,
True.
Yep.
Which leads us to our main event here. And it is the aforementioned, the holder of the Triple B, the AEW World Heavyweight Championship, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, in a 60-minute Iron Man match defense against Bryan Danielson. This match has been so well built. One of the best built world title matches in all of AEW history. I mean, I think it's only second to Kenny Omega and Hangman Page as far as storytelling and the history that goes into it. And this is the first real significant title defense for MJF, if not the only title defense he's had. I don't think he's defended it since he's won it. It is a huge moment for him, not just for the championship defense, but because of the stakes. I mean, it's a 60-minute Iron Man match, kayfabe, and also shoot. This is a huge test for him to have the stamina to withstand fatigue, to go toe-to-toe with arguably one of the best wrestlers in the history of wrestling that is known for their work rate, known for their cardio. And I think he's going to deliver it. We've seen Max pull out things from his bag of tricks. That match with Takeshita that he did that, lots of things we haven't seen. I think we may see more of that here. And it seems forecasted and very choreographed that there's no way Bryan wins. But I just think the storytelling here is Bryan's going to get his moment to shine. That's an important thing. And Max is going to have his moment to have this on Bryan Danielson forever. This is his good. Trish Jericho defeated The Rock and Stone Cold on the same night to win the Undisputed Championship. This will be his moment. You'll never take that away, that I beat Bryan Danielson in a 60-minute Iron Man match, and that's worth its weight in gold. Yeah,
this is a legitimacy match for him. How both, like you said, kayfabe, shoot and work. Him going 60 minutes. This is a way to shut up all the haters that say, he can't wrestle, which at this point, if you're still saying he can't wrestle, I think you're just not watching the product. But I think this match is going to be great. I think MJF definitely pulls some shenanigans and gets the win at the end. I don't think his reign ends with Bryan Danielson. I think the story has been great. I just hear all of the WWE fans that are down on AEW about their stories. And look, I get there's not some 2-3 year bloodline storyline that they're telling. Those are so rare in wrestling in general. But if you're someone they're not telling stories, you're not watching, man. You're not watching because they are definitely telling stories. Now, are they as all consuming as the Bloodline story? No, but there are stories and they're telling good stories right now. I just feel like there's a lot of people leaning on that Bloodline shit, man.
Yeah.
What is there? Take that Bloodline away. What is there? Not a whole lot. And honestly, for me, the Bloodline story is kind of waning, but that's beside the point. I don't know. I think this is a testament. The people that aren't the MJF haters are not giving this match the proper respect I think that it's earned. I think we've seen great segments between these guys. I love Danielson having to win those 5 matches to get in. I don't know. I'm a big fan of this match. I can't wait to see how it goes.
Yeah, and I think it's going to really be impressive. And if you don't like 60-minute Ironman matches and you have difficulty attending to anything and have an ADHD brain, you're going to struggle with enjoying this match. But that sucks for you because, the same critics, Ironman matches have vocal critics about Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. So if that match, two of the all-time greats, are being held to a standard where it's not entertaining, then there's going to be people that say it's boring because they have a short attention span. They don't have the ability to consume that product. But I love that AEW is giving us that option for the diehard fan. And I always compare this to baseball, and we're seeing it's going to be very of everything about baseball and the rules and the pitch clock and just the change. And it's to bring in casual fans. And we're going to see this year if it's at the expense of the diehard fans who are there no matter what, weathering the storm of fandom. Same thing with wrestling. Like, we always talk about this elusive casual fan to bring them in. I don't want the casual fan if it means you're going to sacrifice what I like about wrestling. Because guess what? I'm here day in, day out. I don't give a shit if the casual fan likes it, as long as it's monetarily functional and they're making a profit and it makes sense. I'd rather it be 1 million people watching Dynamite than 3 million if it means the product is going to be lesser than. So that's just
100%.
I like work rate.
I don't give a shit about casual fans. If you have to dumb down the product to bring in people, then let WWE do that shit. I don't like these safe and people, they put on too many big matches and none of the matches feel special. I don't get that philosophy at all.
Right.
Like, I love the match quality we get, and I think story could always be better. I'm a story first guy. Story could always be better, but I think it's a night and day philosophy. You're either a WWE person, you're an AEW person, in the way you like your wrestling told and the way you like your matches. I think they're doing, I could always get more story. I could always have more story on my Dynamite, but at the same time, like, what they give me entertains me, and fuck the casual fan. I don't want them to book for them. I want them to book for us.
100%. And, again, this is reading through WF 1998. If you look at that, it's very driven at the top with the Stone Cold story. And like, really, that's it. Stone Cold and Tyson right now leading up to WrestleMania 14 with Shawn Michaels. And Shawn Michaels isn't even there because he has a broken back. So it's hard to even build the story.
Right.
But the undercard is the shits, man. Like, the work rate and every match is 5 minutes and 40 seconds.
Terrible.
DQs, count outs, but everyone waxes poetic about how amazing it was because the casual fan was there. Are the casual fan, is that the person you want? Is that what you want in AEW? DQ finishes, count outs, short matches? And
hell no.
So, like, that's also, if that's what brings in the casual fan, like we said, hashtag fuck the casual fan. So let's move into quick hitters and talk about all the news around wrestling. We got some quick hitters for you. We're going to come at you fast and furious. Let's start with Tony Khan's important announcement from last week. AEW All Access TV series has been announced. The premiere was bundled with Adam Cole's return to the ring on the lead-in Dynamite, and it will be premiering in March. Admittedly, very much a letdown as far as important, game-changing, promotion-altering announcement. I do like the idea of it. Will I watch it? Maybe I'll tune in depending on what they do. I like the behind the scenes stuff, but following Dynamite, it's a lot to be consuming on one night. Yeah, I wasn't overly stoked about this.
It was a letdown as far as I wasn't expecting a big monumental announcement. It just didn't feel like that to me.
Right.
Will I watch if it's a docu-series? Like if they treat it like, I think Sneed mentioned WWE's 24 series. If they treat it like that, if it's more a sports docu-style series, I am there. If this mimics Total Divas, Total Bellas, I'll probably tune out on it pretty quick. But I'm excited to see what it is. I think things like this are good for AEW because these are tight. These are the things that will pull in a few casuals because you'll get those people like my girlfriend who watches the reality trash TV. They get to know these people behind the scenes and they're like, oh, I want to see them do the actual show. Because if we think about Total Divas, man, Total Divas pulled in a whole new crowd. Because you get to know the people and you want to see them ply their trade. So I think it could be beneficial. I just hope it's not just trash TV. I hope there's some substance behind it.
Agreed 100% with you. We move on to Sean Ross tweeting about the MJF promo last week. MJF has been fire on the mic, but this tweet from Sean Ross Sapp, I think we have it here, right?
No, we don't have it. We don't have
All right,
it.
so I'll read it out loud to you. The MJF promo had a lot of truth to it. Normally I wouldn't cover that type of thing, but he and his fiance did have a split, as was referenced on tonight's AEW Dynamite. So he did cut that, very akin to being bullied for, be in high school with that Punk promo. It felt like it was going to turn the other way and that he was going to make out with his fiance on TV right in front of the screen just to like make people feel that he's still a heel, but pulled the curtain back a little bit. And who knows if his fiance is working everybody and she's tuned in, but it seems like he was tapping into some real life stuff and getting it out to the public. And this is how he wanted to do it. And she's been on screen once, I believe. He made out with her on the entrance ramp.
Yeah.
Sucks to hear that happen. I mean, I know she was selling prints of MJF on Twitter.
I saw that.
So
I think he's the master worker, man. I wouldn't put it past him that this was all just bullshit to take away from him posting I thought it was so odd when he posted that they got engaged. It felt so like out of his character. And
yeah.
So this might just be correcting that. Who knows?
Yeah. But recalibration of the heel image on social media, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But eventually that would come to light. I mean, kayfabe's kayfabe. We go back to Dusty Rhodes wearing a cast in the grocery store and Cody didn't know didn't have a broken leg from the Horseman, but how long can you hide that? Like she's eventually going to be at events with him and like people are going to see that. So I feel like it is truthful. Unfortunately,
I love that he pulls from real life. Like even the car wreck was legit. The girl being in the car with him was a shoot. So he takes real life moments and spins them into his character, which makes it great.
Yeah. And people were calling, local police department in my area about, and they were like, did this really happen? And then, obviously it's pretty funny. People are posting their responses. So moving on here, kind of a lesser important character, but we have to talk about it here. Cameron Grimes is waiting on a WWE to develop a creative direction for his main roster debut. He has not wrestled on TV since November 8th, 2022 on NXT, where he lost to Joe Gacy. They originally had a plan for Grimes to be called up and feud, obviously with somebody after his feud with Gacy concluded. Meltzer addressed this on radio this week. He said Cameron Grimes was finishing up in NXT because he's being called to the main roster. And right now what's going on is they are waiting for an idea of the main roster. So he's in limbo. He's finished with NXT. He's supposed to be on the main roster, but they don't have a story for him. So Cameron Grimes was a very interesting character. He feels like, if I'm booking in my head, he fits in with Baron Corbin. Like I know Baron fell to the wayside with JBL. Put Cameron Grimes with him. I feel like
I could see them sticking him in this whole Bray Wyatt backcountry.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I like that, but I could see the Fed brain going
from your neck of the woods a little bit, right? You got some of those guys that are wandering Virginia, right?
Yeah.
West Virginia, let's be clear.
100%.
All right, so we got signs that Vince McMahon's back in creative. So Sean Ross Sapp, who we mentioned before, is tweeting some stuff, and he's accurate most times, but I know he's a little bit more caustic than Dave Meltzer tends to be. Talent have reached out to him off the record saying they believe Vince is back in creative, and Meltzer and Alvarez jumped on this and talk about the idea after Brock vs. Omos is made official. So that's like kind of fueling that because it feels like a Vince idea. We do have a clip about them talking about it, though.
Think Brock Lesnar and Omos is a sign of something? I think it's a sign that maybe Vince is, giving suggestions, and that was one of them. But
That was
to me,
I can't say that was due to Vince, but I can say that that was a change. That, like, most of this WrestleMania card was stuff that was planned out. But I do know that there were changes in the card in the last week or two. Which whatever that was.
well, I mean, the thing to me is, and we saw this with Sammy in Montreal, and we've seen this. I mean, whatever you think of the television now as compared to with Vince, the fact of the matter is that if they advertise 4 matches for the following week's show, we're going to see all 4 matches. And if we don't, it's going to be an aberration. Whereas before, if they advertised 4 matches for the next week, we would probably see maybe 2 of them. We wouldn't see all 4 ever. And so the thing to me is when you start seeing announcements made and then they change, and they announce matches, and then they don't, and then they announce a card, and they do none of it. That, to me, is the glaring red flag that Vince is back. One random match where they decided to put Omos with Brock Lesnar, yeah, Vince, he may have talked to Brock, and then Brock talked to Hunter, and then they decided this is the match we want to do or whatever. I don't know. But that, to me, is not an indication that he has full control again.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. It's interesting that there's reports coming out that he's pulling some strings again, but we'll see.
Meltzer's so stressful to hear him trying to cut in on Alvarez. Like, he doesn't let him finish the thought. And you can see Brian has grown over time where he just bulldozes through. He's like, I'm getting my fucking thought out.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have more WWE news here. Backlash and King and Queen of the Ring are set for May. So they're going to be running 2 pay-per-views in May of 2023. And Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics reported that on Saturday, May 6th, will be Backlash, and King and Queen of the Ring is going to be May 27th. Most notably, May 27th is Memorial Day weekend, which is traditionally where AEW holds Double or Nothing. So are they going to be having King of the Ring, which used to be a premier event? This used to be not one of the big 4, but maybe a close 5. King of the Ring used to be very, very important. People forget that. It wasn't just a one-off on like the WWE network. It used to be a big thing. Coronation moments. Austin 316 was spawned out of a King of the Ring. So let's not forget that.
Yeah.
Backlash will not have the WrestleMania Backlash title. So it's going to stand on its own, which is nice to see. But we got, these trademarks back in December 2022. But as I mentioned, 1993 to 2002, this tournament was just absolutely programmatically important. Winner of the King of the Ring eventually got a title shot at SummerSlam. It was a very, very important thing, just as important as the Royal Rumble. So we'll see if it has the same exact importance to it. So, it's going to be the lead-in. And it looks like we're not going to get a June pay-per-view because Money in the Bank is going to be July 1st, which is going to be at an arena as well. And August 5th will be SummerSlam. So pay-per-view staggered a little bit scheduled here. And I'm excited for King and Queen of the Ring to start. But I hope it has the importance it used to, because I don't want the Xavier Woods level King of the Ring. I want the Stone Cold Bret Hart level King of the Ring.
I don't buy any of this shit. Like they've made me not give a damn about the King of the Ring for so long. I mean, honestly, it hasn't mattered to me since the late 90s. Like it just doesn't. Like they don't treat it. I always hear like, you need to bring back King of the Ring. They brought it back, man, and they squander it. I guess the last interesting winner was Booker T, maybe, when he won it. He was doing that gimmick, but I could care less about this. Like, I just know the way they book, I can't see this being some monumental thing anymore.
Dude, again, this is a test of who's really pulling the strings back there. They hate tournaments. Let's be honest. They don't have the fortitude to withstand what it takes to book a tournament. And one of my favorite Survivor Series we're going to be covering on Shad Nostalgia is 98. You have a one-night fucking tournament for the world title. Amazing. Yeah. Great storytelling. Yeah. So
they don't do that.
All right, moving on to here. You mentioned Total Divas and the importance of it. We have Nikki Bella saying that she thinks WWE thinks they own the fans and their creative content. We have a clip here.
Yeah, interesting clip.
They were the storytellers. They push who they want the crowd to be behind. Just perception is reality. That is WWE to a T. they tell, even though the fans think they own it, no, they laugh in the back. No, we own you at the end of the day. You're chanting that because we just made you believe in something. It's fun to watch it because it's like you see one part of people thinking they're running the show, and then you see the people in the back,
the
like,
full marionette.
oh, we're running. Yep.
She quantified it pretty well there.
Yeah, I mean that's the way it is. That they've always been like that. I don't think it's a shocker. I just thought it was funny that someone so entrenched in that company for so long comes out and says something like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, she was the model citizen because she was married to John Cena at one point. You never heard any sort of ill will, but I think she feels spurned by the lack of, I guess, Bella tribute that they've had for the importance of the women's division. I was never a Bella Twins fan, but you can't dispute that they were important to getting WWE's women's division where it was, and getting emphasis. And Total Divas played a huge part of that as well.
Yeah.
We have Jonathan Coachman talking about Ariel Helwani, and we know the coach. He's a former commentator on WWE, and he tuned in, and you have the tweet here. So we have Ariel is not allowed in the building for UFC events, and ESPN clearly didn't know when they hired him, which is why he only lasted one contract. Also, the mockery he makes of pro wrestling, like he could ever do it, not only upsets me, but a lot of people actually in the business. Wow. Get him, coach. This is a dude who has no reason to say anything that he's saying. He's a guy who's been in the business, well-respected. He's in ESPN as well. Coaches, him and I share the kinship. We both entered into Royal Rumbles and didn't come out on top.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I thought this was very interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was just a follow-up to last week's story with Ariel and Tony Khan, and Ariel has since said that him and Coach had issues at ESPN, and it didn't surprise him for him to come out and make these comments. He was trying to cover his ass, but it seems so odd of a take. Like when I read it, I'm like, is he really going in on Helwani? So just to show you that Helwani isn't this beloved guy by everyone in the business, and Tony Khan was the erratic lunatic popping off shots. Like there is another side to Ariel that his fan base does not see.
And just while there's an open, there was a comment on the last YouTube video we did that's saying that Tony Khan should be above tweeting that's the fan's job. I just disagree. I think Tony has the right to defend himself against critics because he bites his tongue a lot about what's said to him. He doesn't address every nuanced dispute that people throw his way, but when it is absolutely relevant to defend yourself, he has every fucking right to do it, whether it's in an interview on Twitter, it doesn't matter.
I'm with you. That's one of my biggest opinions that I cannot stand from people is he looks Bush League when he says stuff. He should just keep his mouth shut. I'm like, dude, he's not WWE. He hasn't got to that level yet. He's got to defend his product. I like that he stands up for himself.
We also have, speaking of WWE, John Cena is going to be returning to WWE in time for WrestleMania season on the March 6th, 2023 Monday Night Raw episode from the TD Garden in Boston, which is his hometown. We saw him in the final SmackDown in 2022 in that tag match where he teamed with Kevin Owens against Roman and Sammy. Meltzer's been talking about it. We've been reading on the dirt sheets. It might be Cena and Austin Theory for WrestleMania 39. Who knows where they're doing? I mean, it seemed like they were going to get the title off of Theory to build for that program. Are they going to have Cena go defend? I mean, or have the U.S. title in his opportunity? I mean, it's not beyond him. He's held it before, but we will certainly see Theory defended his championship successfully against Edge. So he's going to be going into WrestleMania champion. I think the program would be great for Theory. I think it'd be awesome if Cena put over Theory. If it's not a job match where Theory is going to be looking like shit, why not build your next future star?
No, I think that's what Cena should do. I mean, that is a Mania moment for Theory. Bring in a big guy, have him go over. So if they do that, I think it'll be good.
Major League Wrestling officially signs Akira. We've seen him on GCW and ICW No Holds Barred. They released an official announcement that he's going to be on MLW Underground is very, very soon on Real. So Akira, a very talented dude. He'll be at April 6th, New York City, and April 8th in Philadelphia. But Akira is a very talented guy we've seen have great matches across different platforms. He's actually, he wrestled, remarkable wrestling's Gabe's guy in a title defense, and very, very great match. And Akira's been all over the place and a very good get for MLW.
Yeah, I love Akira. We had a deathmatch tournament here locally, Masters of Pain, and he actually won it. And he was in there with the John Wayne Murdochs, the Alex Colognes, a who's who of deathmatch performers. That's Akira's he kind of blends that catch can wrestling with deathmatch wrestling. So he's a fun addition to that MLW roster.
We have Mercedes Monet talking about Amazing Red, who I love. Amazing Red. Shout out to him, local legend here, owns House of Glory. And Mercedes was talking about how many people were actually influenced by Amazing Red. You and I alluded to that the last time we spoke about him, and she said, I quote, when it comes to any big matches, I always go to train with him. I actually trained with him this past weekend to get ready for me versus Kyrie because he is such a master of the game. She continues, people steal from Amazing Red and steal his style without even knowing. He is an underground legend that deserves all the flowers in the world. He's just amazing. Simply amazing. And the same could be said about so many guys that came before them. I want to give a shout out to the Spanish announce team from that same area.
SAT.
They are absolutely legends of the game. And some of the moves we see as transition moves, the Spanish fly, that's they're doing. That's the event. And Amazing Red too. When I talk about the Code Red, that's a transition move that gets used all the time among many. So I'm glad to see Mercedes on a big platform giving him some love because Amazing Red deserves it.
Yeah, he definitely does.
WWE is considering bringing NXT star Carmelo Hayes to the main roster. This is more of the conversation. He's going to be wrestling, apparently, Braun Breaker at Stand and Deliver on WrestleMania weekend. Carmelo Hayes is one of those bright spots of a really shitty NXT product, and I think he's going to be potentially, Meltzer talked about the potential of the new Hurt business, and Carmelo Hayes could be a part of it. I think that could be very exciting and has a lot of potential. But like we said, I mean, we talk about Cameron Grimes, his plans are on hold. And I know Carmelo Hayes has more of a trajectory than Cameron Grimes, but you have to have the plans to have him be called up to the roster. And I think he's ready. It's a matter of they're going to be ready to pull the trigger following. Maybe he can be a show up on the Raw after WrestleMania.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so tapped out on NXT. It's like, cool. Whatever they do with him, they do with him.
MLW's Richard Holiday announced on Twitter as of Friday they completed chemotherapy treatments for cancer and it's time to recover. You guys covered this in depth on the flagship, so we won't go too far into it, but good for him recovering from stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma, which not a good diagnosis, and he is kicking out. And I'm very happy to see this. Would love to see if he can get back in the ring. And he's a multi-time champion with MLW. He teamed with MJF. Like, the guy is super, super talented. Happy to hear this. Great news to hear Richard Holiday recovering.
Yeah, all the best to Richard Holiday.
We have Kenta commenting on CM Punk being at New Japan Pro Wrestling's Battle in the Valley in San Jose. Kenta's great, man. Kenta goes out there. He's very expletive. He'll speak his mind. And they've had real life beef over CM Punk using the go to sleep. And Kenta did comment on Twitter and said, I heard my biggest fan in the world came to the arena last night. I hope he enjoyed the real go to sleep. So
I love that.
At Kenta G2S tweeted that February 19th. So off of that, I love Kenta and CM Punk going back and forth. And that's his goddamn move. We talked about Amazing Red.
Yeah.
This is Kenta's move. Let's not forget that.
So many people use the go to sleep now.
We have Okada and Tanahashi are going to be challenging for the IWGP Tag Team Championship at the anniversary event on March 6th. So they're calling them New Japan's Dream Team, and rightfully so. They're going to be taking on Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi at the 51st anniversary show on March 6th at the Ota City General Gymnasium in Tokyo. Okada's all over the place. I know he's working with Noah. He's doing a lot of good stuff. This is a different aesthetic we're seeing from Okada, playing the heel in Noah. Pretty cool to see him and Tanahashi teaming up for going for the tag gold.
Yeah. Two legends coming together, go after the tag belts. That's fun.
We have Andrade El Idolo gave an injury update. He's still out recovering from surgery after suffering a torn pectoral injury from a match he had in November. He's not expected to be ready until the spring. I didn't even know he had a torn pec. Did you know that?
I did know that he I thought it was a shoulder issue. I didn't know about the torn pec. I knew it was something big, but I wasn't aware that it was a torn pec like Cody.
Yeah, I thought he was out of action because of his fight with Sammy and being critical of the booking, but it seems like he's hurt. So we'll see if
I knew back. He had posted a picture of him coming out of surgery a while ago. So
Right.
I knew that was why he was gone. I'm sure he wouldn't have been the Sammy thing probably would have played into it too if he wasn't injured, but still.
We also have pics teasing the new Ring of Honor TV stage and ramp, and at this time of filming, it's been done. And we've had some spoilers are out there, so I'll give you guys ample time right now. We're going to just say what happened. If you guys want to tune out for a sec, fast forward for like 2 minutes. Again, spoiler alert. Give you guys a couple seconds. Zack Sabre Jr. appeared at the tapings, and we're getting the seat planted for Eddie Kingston versus Claudio finally at Ring of Honor, and their real life feud is going to be coming to life. At a great match. Something we didn't even talk about the possibility. We thought it was going to be Roosh. Hell yeah, save Roosh for another day. Eddie Kingston versus Claudio could steal the weekend as far as matches go.
Yeah, good history there. I mean, it's a built-in history. They don't have a lot of time to build something, so it's smart to dive into that, I think.
Tune into Honor Society Thursday nights at 10 p.m. following the Ring of Honor TV when it airs. We're going to be going in depth, myself and Mullet.mania. Colton will be talking about Ring of Honor. But we are going to be talking about the new trademark from AEW, and it's AEW Collision. So we're not exactly sure what it's for, but it looks like it right now for the trademark. It's a continuing program about wrestling accessible by radio, TV, satellite, audio, video, and computer networks. My gut, Chad, would be that it's going to be similar to Fyter Fest or Shamrock Slam or St. Patrick's Day Slam, whatever it's called. It's going to be just AEW Dynamite Collision. I think that's what it's going to be.
That's what it sounds like to me too, like some sort of special Dynamite thing.
Eric Bischoff gave his thoughts on Sami Zayn's loss in the latest episode of his 83 Weeks, and he pretty much said the fans really want to see him get that title. It's not like they're going to stop wanting it. When you have a babyface, just a white-hot babyface, it's so important that they get the title. It's important that they're chasing that title. The only way that works is if the audience really wants it. I mean, generally not because they want to see a title change, have something to chat about on Reddit or whatever. I mean, Bischoff definitely has a smart mind for the business. I disagree. I mean, you're quickly losing the momentum for potentially Sammy being a viable contender to that championship. Almost think it's past that point already. Like, unless you put him in this WrestleMania main event, I don't know. I don't see it having the same meaning as it would have in Montreal. It's like, on a lesser scale, it was like Grand Slam,
I mean, I think they could always double back to it and get fans invested again, but I don't think they missed the peak of what it could be.
You might as well just not do it now. You know what I mean? Like, the moment's passed.
He could be back in the world title picture at some point under a different circumstance, but you missed the moment. I know you wanted the moment. I just think it wasn't the right moment because of all the moving parts involved with Roman. I don't think you can beat Roman a month out from Mania, but it was just odd timing, the way they had all the moving parts of when events were happening, Mania on the horizon. I think that's really what kept it from happening. If this was going into any other event, I think they could have pulled the trigger on it, but I just don't think you can pull the trigger. Even though the moment was there, it's like bad timing all around.
We also had WWE Senior VP of Talent Operations and Strategy was fired last week. So the dude's name is Jason Kimball. He was terminated due to an HR violation. He was hired in August 2020. And after 11 months, he was promoted to Senior Vice President of Global Strategy and Development, where he spent 15 months before moving his final role. Don't know what happened, HR issue, but maybe they're on top of it because of the Vince stuff in the news. They want to make sure that they're a sale coming up. They don't want any sort of bad press.
That's
Jason Kimball, see you later.
Yeah, see you, buddy.
Josh Alexander for Steve Macklin is going to be set for Impact Rebellion. So this will be happening at their next pay-per-view. Macklin picked up the win in a 4-way at Friday's No Surrender to earn the shot after defeating PCO, Heath, and Brian Myers. This event will be April's Rebellion, and Josh Alexander has been the utmost example of what a champion should be for the Impact brand. He's going to continue that run when he takes on Steve Macklin in Toronto, Canada on April 16th. I'm looking forward to that program.
Yeah, and hats off to Impact for taking a guy like Steve Macklin from the WWE umbrella who got no love and building him into a contender. I think they've done a great job at doing things like that.
Davey Richards versus Blake Christian will be on April 15th GCW event. Don't believe that match. Oh, actually, it is cold. I Can't Feel My Face. I think it's going to be the second edition of Can't Feel My Face. Blake Christian versus Davey Richards. Dude, I would love to see Davey Richards be a full-time guy in GCW, or maybe put the title on him, because like we were talking about before, I'd get the title off of Nick Gage and find a different way, Because imagine this feud: Davey Richards versus Blake Christian for the world title. Blake Christian's heel turn in GCW. Davey Richards, like the lineage of Davey Richards speaks for itself throughout ROH. Would love to see him get a lot of shine and put that GCW world title back on the map.
Absolutely.
MLW, as we mentioned before, is trying to get on Amazon Prime. So they have the cable network deal with Reels just last month, and they're looking to take their partnership to the next level. Fightful reported this. They're trying to get MLW Underground available on Prime. So this is another MLW is trying to reach out, be that third option out there, trying to surpass Impact. Don't know if it's going to work. I mean, you can definitely,
dude, they're pushing, man.
They're pushing, but as far as like perception goes, that they have to hop Impact first, and I think they're almost there, but I don't think they're quite at that level.
No, they're not. They're not there, but they're putting on compelling storylines, and they're pulling solid ratings for Reels. I mean, they had an average of 97,000 viewers, which is almost in Impact number territory because the company came out. Fightful stated that the company claimed the number was even higher, almost pushing 140,000. Now, once you're getting into 140, 150,000, you're right there with Impact. So.
We have Kenny Omega's AEW contract has been extended due to injury time. The length is unknown. So again, if someone wants to start a database for us, that'd be amazing. This was reported by Meltzer. We talked about it in depth last week about him leaving, but they've tacked on time. So his contract was apparently set to expire on January 31st of this year. Then he originally signed a 4-year deal that started on February 1st, 2019. The injury clause has an extension to it. So we don't have the exact number, but he is, think about the time he's been out. He was out from November 2021 to August 2022. So add that time to his contract. It seems like it's coming soon, but not as close as people probably thought. So they still got to figure out how to get him locked up, but it's definitely not as pressing as it was that we were just reporting last week.
Right.
We have Anna Jay suffering a dislocated rib or multiple ribs during the recent AEW Rampage match. She made this known on Twitter, January 13th. Apparently people were saying she had a bruised tailbone, but this is a dislocated rib after that crazy street fight. We talked about the spot where they missed the table and ugly spot. Great match, but Anna Jay, I'm glad she's okay, but dislocated ribs, that's not fun.
No, it could have, it looked a lot worse when Willow Nightingale had her in that power bomb and they missed it. It looked like it could have been really, really bad, like concussion type of stuff. So
we had Spectrum Cable kind of spoiled AEW and New Japan's Forbidden Door date for the second one on their listings of upcoming events. June 24th. So mark your calendars. I don't know if it's official yet, but we do know it was going to happen. June 24th kind of fits where it would happen. Seems like this is the date. So if you guys have plans for that weekend, don't, because you want to check out that event.
Yeah, I'm stoked to see what they do. I think it's going to be interesting leading up to that because that could be Mercedes playing a part.
We also have Drew McIntyre wants the Intercontinental Championship against Gunther, and this is tied with the fact that Lesnar was supposed to be taking on Gunther, but it seems like plans have changed. He's moving over to Omos, and Drew McIntyre seems like he's going to be taking the helm.
Yeah, just give me something good with Gunther, man. Just give me something good with Gunther, like a good storyline.
Him and Drew, I feel like I'm kind of pumped on that.
Yeah, no, Drew's legit. I like Drew. I think that's a good matchup. I was hoping for Gunther and Lesnar, but
Dave Bautista is expected to headline the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2023. We could talk all day about the Hollywood connection. If you watch the new Glass Onion movie, he's in Guardians of the Galaxy, but he's a late bloomer that is an inspiration to those getting to the wrestling business. So he's a guy who started late and built a career off of it. Happy for Dave Bautista. Big fan of him. Well-deserved. I mean, multiple times over. He's going to go in with Evolution. And he's going to go in by himself too.
Perfect Hall of Fame inductee when you're going to be in Hollywood this year. I think it fits.
And finally, Commander is going to be making his AEW Dynamite debut this week. Dude, Commander, friend of the show, awesome guy. He's going to be debuting in the face of the Revolution on a Roto Revolution ladder match. I expect him to go all out and show out, and I can't imagine what he's going to do on a national audience. So it's book him up, guys, if you want it for independent dates, because I think he's going to be locked up for a long time once Tony gets his hands on him.
Yeah, I think this is going to be his coming out party. I wouldn't be surprised if we get Commander is all elite graphic right after this episode of Dynamite. So
for the results of the week on Dynamite, we had Mox defeating Evil Uno. Orange defended his All-Atlantic Championship against Wheeler Yuta in a great match. Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal advanced to the 4-way at the pay-per-view. The Acclaim defeated Big Bill and Lee Moriarty, and Saraya defeated Sky Blue. On Friday's Rampage, the Young Bucks defeated Aussie Open. House of Black got involved to build that feud up a little bit further. Tony Storm defeated Willow Nightingale. Lance Archer squashed Bryce Saturn, and Sammy Guevara defeated Action Andretti. They're going to be having a rematch next week on Rampage as well. I believe it's Sammy again, but we'll preview it in a sec. On Raw, not much happening here. We had Sammy defeating Baron Corbin. Mustafa defeated Dolph Ziggler. Not a lot. I mean, Austin Theory defeated Edge to retain the U.S. title, so that's mostly there. More par for the course content for the sake of content. SmackDown, same thing over here. Most notably, Jey Uso was remaining conflicted in the war between the Bloodline. Further in that story, so under the orders of Roman to handle the Jey Uso situation, Jimmy appeared during the main event of last night's SmackDown. Or on Friday SmackDown, I should say, and wanted to talk to Jey, but Sami Zayn showed up instead and trying to convince Jimmy he doesn't have to go down with the Bloodline ship. Seems like they're building up that tag match between Jey and Jimmy versus Kevin and Sami.
I just don't care. They've lost me there. I think they've botched Jey and Jimmy for me. I just don't. It's too much flip. It's too much of the same. Like, make a move.
On NXT, Braun Breaker successfully defended his championship against Jinder Mahal. That's really the only thing of note from NXT. Moving on to No Surrender. Definitely a great event. As we mentioned, Josh Alexander still champion. He kept the championship over Rich Swann. We also had a good match between Gresham and Speedball on the pre-show, and then Steve Macklin won that shot in the number one contenders match. We also had Bully Ray throwing coffee in Tommy Dreamer's eyes and knocking Dave LaGreca down in a Busted Open Radio live segment. Decent event. No Surrender.
Joe Hendry retaining over Moose. It was a good event, man. It was a really good event.
On NWA Power, Sion retained his National Heavyweight Championship at a time limit draw over JR Kratos, and then Matt Cardona defeated Odison, and he called out Bully Ray to build up their match in the future. Cardona is all over the place. He's going to be working a lot of different places. Just say that right now.
Yeah.
But cool that he's on Power getting some shine.
Yeah, Cardona's like bridging the gap of a lot of promotions. It's fun to see.
And on MLW Underground, we had Sam Adonis defeating Calvin Tankman. In the main event, Alex Hammerstone defeated Yamato. The Billowing Bulldogs defeated the FBI. And Mance Warner, as you posted on the Reels, hit Real One, a.k.a. Enzo Amore, with his car.
Yeah. Storylines like that will pull fans in, though. It's a fun kind of angle. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch that.
All right, let's get into Dave's raves and talk about what he thought about the week. All right, Uncle Dave, his match of the week was Yuji Nagata versus Kento Miyahara from February 19th in Tokyo, the All Japan 50th anniversary show from Korakuen Hall. Great match. Definitely check it out. All Japan doesn't get as much love as the other entities with New Japan and Noah out there, but they're very much, maybe the Impact right now of Japan, but check them out. There's a lot of good talent there.
Yeah, All Japan. I mean, if you look at the history of All Japan, those Kawada Masawa matches, it's fun to see them getting a little, that 50th anniversary show getting some love. Check them out.
Just to give a shout out to worked the event Better Than the Best 2 at Remarkable Wrestling, did commentary for IWTV with Sasuke Special. Follow him on Instagram. He posts all Japan highlights from back in the day. Very, very good follow. I'm sure you probably follow him already. I didn't even know it was him. I was like, dude, I've been following you forever. I love your shit. So Sasuke Special. So check him out. His performer of the week is Sami Zayn, and he posted the result in the newsletter this week of the Wrestler of the Year for 2022. So delayed accounting for them. Really awesome read. It came down to 3 guys, most notably at the top. Jon Moxley edged out Roman Reigns, and the argument that he made about Moxley is he's the most valuable player. He stepped up when they needed him. Roman Reigns had a limited schedule, so I'm sure people are going to look at it as like he has an AEW spin to his optics, but you can't dispute it. He's more valuable. He was, because twice after injuries to Punk, he called to lead the company. And Meltzer says, had he not been around, the declines would have been greater than they were. Coming off rehab at the start of the year, he and Jericho really carried the company during different periods. And he carried it when Punk, Kenny Omega, and the Bucks were suspended. So you take both of them out of the picture in 2022, it's AEW that would have been far worse off. So
Oh, 100%. 100%. He's a more valuable player as far as like the company needs him. WWE doesn't need Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is helping the company, but if Roman left for Hollywood tomorrow, next man up, they would just keep chugging along.
yeah, he goes down the list of the history of the Wrestlers of the Year. Fascinating read where he talks about, having previously won the award in 2020, Moxley has joined Harley Race, Ric Flair, Misawa, Kabashi, Jericho, Cena, Tanahashi, AJ Styles, and Kenny Omega as the only 2 times winners in the Wrestling Observer Award history. So really awesome to see. Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes is expected to headline the second night of WrestleMania. Right now, there's no decision on the main event. Past an internal feeling that Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley is going to be the favorite for the first night. So there's a push feeling. This is Meltzer saying this for sponsors and political reasons. After men main evented both nights last year, it'd be good for a women's match to headline. And the feeling that Flair versus Ripley is stronger than Bianca versus Asuka. And then he said if there is a Usos versus Zayn and Kevin Owens match, one would think that would be the other favorite. So I asked you, Chad. Now that we're over 2 hours and we don't have to, we're already there.
We don't have to rush. We can just.
What is your thought about main eventing WrestleMania? What would you go with on the second night or the first night, I should say?
Honestly, I'm not sure which match I would lean to. I would just say pick the match that has the most heat behind it. I hate this, and this might get some heat on me, but I hate this like political. We have to do all of our demographic checkmark list. Well, we gave them one. I hate it in all aspects of life. I think the cream rises to the top. If they book Rhea and Charlotte, and that's the match everyone wants to see, absolutely they should main event. But just to give them that because, we need women to do this and we need men, since men are headlining night 2, we need to put, I don't like when you're just kind of placating society. Like if that's your biggest match, I'm all for it. But I hate the politics that come into Hollywood and sports. And it's like in Hollywood, you're trying to, when they give best movie of the year, best actor, it's like they want to play the game. They want to, last year we gave them this, so we need to overcorrect. And no, how about just the best wins? The best. What's the best script? What's the best match? So for me, it's like if they build Usos versus Zayn and Owens, and that's the match everyone wants to see, it makes sense to me. That should main event. But I hate it when it, like Dave is talking about, the feeling for sponsors and political reasons is to, because I'll be honest, man, right now, Bianca Belair and Asuka does nothing for me. The story does nothing for me. Rhea is the hottest female in the company right now, but I don't think they've built this Charlotte thing that well.
They have one interaction so far. That's it.
Yeah. I don't see main event of WrestleMania with that match. So I'll be honest, I don't know if we're talking the match that has the most heat behind it outside of Roman and Cody, Seth and Logan Paul, maybe
right.
I don't know.
The tag titles main eventing at WrestleMania would be a big deal, and Zayn would have that moment. So you're kind of checking both boxes, but and the Usos had a historic reign. I don't know. It's kind of a drop off for sure. But you know what? It's WrestleMania. It's the event.
It's
at this
bloodline.
point.
It's another example of WWE is very bloodline heavy right now. It's a great storyline. They're doing a lot with it, but all the other stories, there's not a lot that meat on the bone with every other story. There's some okay stuff, but there's nothing that's like, see, they have great stories down the card. They don't. They have a top heavy story, and then everything else is kind of like hit or miss.
Completely agree with you. And if you guys are interested in this, check out the newsletter. And he lists the top 20 wrestlers of the year based on votes. I only put the top 3 in my notes here. Jon Moxley being the first, beating out Roman Reigns by almost 1,000 votes. And Will Ospreay was the third, and a distant third, but well-deserved. He was my wrestler of the year as far as match quality goes, but you can't dispute as far as if you look at it, best wrestler or most valuable wrestler, it's no disputing that's Jon Moxley if you're saying most valuable to their company.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the week ahead and talk about what's going on. Raw, SmackDown, NXT, New Japan, all over the place. All right, for the week ahead, let's start with Raw, which is tonight. It's already started, so you guys are seeing some matches. We get the women's tag team champions defending their titles, Damage Control, Dakota Kai and Io Sky defending against Becky Lynch and Lita. Asuka taking on Carmella, Candice LeRae versus Piper Niven. So that's 3 women's matches. Lesnar showing up and accepting Omos's challenge. Will he do that? And a WrestleMania edition of Miz TV. So those are what's been announced so far. Good for you guys if you're watching it.
Yeah, I mean, god damn. If that's what I got to look forward to.
For SmackDown, Roman Reigns is returning. Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley, and we get Natalya and Tegan Nox versus Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. So I'm sure there will be other matches, but those are the ones announced as of right now. We are, closer to Raw when we're recording this, and we are SmackDown, but I'm sure there'll be more. Roman Reigns returning should draw a big rating.
I mean, the Bloodline owns. I think everyone on Raw, like what we tune into Raw right now to see what Cody Rhodes is going to say. That's really it. Like those matches do outside of Becky Lynch and Lita, maybe against I mean, come on, man. That's a rough lineup.
For NXT, the North American Championship Open Challenge, we get Mako Satomura versus Zoe Stark and Carmelo Hayes versus Tyler Bate. Hayes versus Bate might bang. That might be a good match.
No, that Hayes Bate match and I'm a big Zoe Stark fan too. So that Carmelo Hayes Tyler Bate match though, that's a great match.
We also have the start of the New Japan Cup on Sunday, March 5th. So we're going to get Sonata versus Taichi in the first round, Naito versus El Phantasmo. We're going to get a 6-man tag with Okada, Tanahashi, and Honma versus Goto, Yoshihashi, and Ishii. We're also going to get Minoru Suzuki, El Desperado, and Yuta Nakashima versus Kenta, Chase Owens, and Gato. So a decent card. The start of New Japan Cup is the first and foremost thing. That's going to stretch over the course of probably about 4 or 5 weeks. Should be really, really awesome.
Yeah, and then the next night we get the New Japan 51st anniversary show.
Yeah, which more New Japan Cup first round matches. Finley versus Ishii in the first round. Shota Umino versus Takahashi. So this tournament should be fun. And I think it's going to be one of those things that people circle on their calendars year to year. Really awesome to see them celebrating their anniversary this way. And there's a lot of anniversaries coming up in the Japanese wrestling landscape. We talked about the All Japan anniversary show that just happened. Celebrating check marks. And no one really does a better job than the Japanese wrestling culture of honoring their past. They really do a good job. I mean, first and foremost, the Great Muta's send-off was beautifully done.
Yeah, and the thing I'm really interested, I'm kind of tracking right now, just based off of the loser leaves Japan, New Japan match with Jay White, and then David Finlay coming in to interrupt his goodbye. Is David Finlay the new Gaijin heel for New Japan? That's what it felt like, and we see him going against Ishii in the first round of the New Japan Cup. Like, how are they going to push David Finlay? Having him attack Jay White on his way out of the company was a big sign for me.
Yeah, super talented dude. I would love to see that happen. And David Finlay, well deserved. I can't think of a better guy, honestly, that's on that roster that could take.
I know a lot of people are saying El Phantasmo could fall into that spot, so it's going to be fun to see who they go with.
I think I'd rather David Finlay for sitting here, like having to book it. I love what David Finlay's done in his New Japan role, and
he's got the family lineage too. So
for AEW Dynamite here, we talked about it before in the news because it deserves to be mentioned twice. We got the Face of the Revolution match for a future TNT title shot. My dude Commander, also my dude Takeshita taking on Ortiz, Action Andretti, Sammy Guevara, and Powerhouse Hobbs. Also Eddie Kingston and AR Fox. This match is gonna be crazy. Like, what is Commander going to be doing in this match? He's clearly doing the rope spot. He needs to show not the casual fan, because AEW fans are not so much casual, but the larger scope of an audience, that rope spot where he's running the ropes in a ladder match. Good for him. I actually messaged Commander to congratulate him. Seriously, the work he's been doing for GCW across AAA, nobody deserves the praise that Commander deserves. And we were on the pulse of it during the GCW show. I see the future in this guy, young as hell, 24 years old. He might be the best lucha in all of wrestling right now. I mean, you guess, you can go back to other names right now, but the things he's doing for a lucha libre style, that's hard to develop new movesets and develop things that haven't been done. Commander is continually doing that on any given night. The things he's able to do, it's unparalleled. So I'm really looking forward to this
he's
match.
He's crushing it. And this match is going to be crazy because you've got people like him and Andretti and Guevara and AR Fox who are just going to do crazy ass spots. But then you throw in those wild cards like Takeshita, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Eddie Kingston. Man, this could be a wild match.
Yeah, I mean, I see Takeshita coming out of this right here. I really do. But you can make the argument that Powerhouse Hobbs should get it because I think he's been on the back burner, but super over. He got a huge reaction on his last Dark appearance. He had some momentum after that Ricky Starks feud, but another guy put on ice. But let's put Jeff Jarrett in a tag match. God damn it!
I think Hobbs might come out of this. They did the Book of Hobbs thing. And, if this is lining up a TNT shot, Wardlow versus Hobbs could be a lot of fun.
We also have the Casino Tag Team Battle Royal, as we mentioned before. It's teams like Top Flight, Aussie Open, Matt Menard and Angelo Parker from JAS, Best Friends. We got Dark Order, Alex Reynolds and John Silver. A lot of the same teams. So we'll see who comes out. We also have the Joker team. We talked about it in depth, so I'm not going to go too far into it, but should be, a Battle Royal that is going to have a winner. I think that's the only thing we can say about it.
Yeah, well, let's see how it goes. I'm not... I think the only team in there that wasn't in the first one's Claudio and Wheeler.
Right. We have the All-Atlantic Championship on the line. Orange Cassidy defending against Big Bill. Should be an interesting match. Love to see the title defended. Big Bill has been kind of an interesting character. And then we have the FW Championship, Hook versus Matt Hardy, which feels bizarre, but unsanctioned championship being defended. I'll take it on TV.
Yeah, why not? I mean, again, this is one of those matches where I look at a young guy like Hook working with a legend like Matt Hardy. Makes sense.
We have Chris Jericho taking on your boy, Peter Avalon. I'm speaking right now to the head of the Peter Avalon fan club, so I'm distinctly honored. So Peter Avalon getting some shine on Dynamite.
Peter Avalon, one of the OGs of AEW, some of the best facial expressions in the business. I popped when I saw this match just because last week he gets the Judas effect, and then they're going to give him love. I think Jericho's a big fan of Peter Avalon too. He loves those gimmicky guys. So
yeah,
we'll see how it goes. It's just going to turn into an angle shot for Revolution.
And we get Tony Storm versus Rio. And of course, MJF and Bryan Danielson will have a segment together. So more build towards Revolution on the Go Home show. Pretty pumped for this.
Yeah.
We have Ring of Honor's first taping is going to be with Claudio defending his ROH World Championship against AR Fox Thursday, March 2nd. This was released in a news release, and Tony Khan said the new era of honor will begin this Thursday with the Ring of Honor World Champion Claudio Castagnoli defending his title against the man who cost him $100,000 at Christmas. This match he's referring to is obviously the Three Kings Christmas Casino Trios Battle Royal. Say that 10 times fast. That took place on December 21st on Rampage. Dante Martin eliminated Castagnoli to win the match himself. Darius Martin and Fox all receiving $100,000 in storyline. So some layers. Awesome. Title defense. Why not on the first? And if you guys want the spoilers, go look at them. But we're going to be covering in depth on Thursday following this match, and fully expecting Claudio to win this match clearly, but should be a nice little segment for AR Fox to have some shine, because I think he deserves to be potentially one of those guys on the main events in Ring of Honor. Yeah,
I'd like to see him involved. I would like to see Top Flight become one of their tag teams too, or go after the 6-man tags. So
on Rampage, it looks like we're getting a rematch of Sammy Guevara versus Action Andretti. I'm not sure if that's actually happening or just was conjectured through Twitter between the both of them. So stay tuned for that. If that makes you watch Rampage, watch it, but I'm sure they're going to have more Rampage commercials on Dynamite, so stay tuned for that. On Impact, we have the World Tag Team Champions, Motor City Machine Guns, taking on this. Actually, we have the results here. They're going to be defending against Ace Austin and the Bullet Club. So that's going to be happening on Impact, which the taping's already done. So that should be a absolute banger match, which I heard was a banger. Don't know the results yet, but I heard people say if you were looking to tune into Impact, check out the Tag Team Championship that's going to be airing this Thursday.
I love Motor City Machine Guns.
And we have MLW Underground on 228. We have Davey Richards defending his MLW National Openweight Championship against John Morrison, Johnny Mundo, Johnny Elite, Johnny whatever.
I think Davey Richards is calling him Johnny Turncoat in storyline.
So Johnny Loser probably, but Davey Richards should be a sick match. MLW on Reels, check it out. If you guys are looking for more wrestling, can't get enough of it, check it out.
Should be fun. I mean, I think MLW is heating up, man. That's why I try to track it in the news every week, because it feels like they're trying to make a lot of business moves here recently. I'm excited to see what they do.
Well, that's going to put a bow on what we have for you guys wrestling tonight. We did go 2 hours and 15 minutes, but dude, we had so much news to cover. We even kind of skipped over the less important stuff. That's how much we had here. But I felt like we jam-packed it all in for you. I appreciate you guys listening. This was
plus we previewed Revolution, and we went deep on Revolution. I feel like that ran us long. So
yeah, listen, man, I love listening to podcasts that go in depth. I don't care if it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's the beauty of the 1.5 speed. So I talk very fast, so I apologize for those listening to 1.5 speed, but that's how I consume my podcast. I listen so the length doesn't matter to me. But, just want to say I appreciate everyone's support this weekend. This is my first chance of getting on here post the event on Friday night. Better Than the Best 2 with the Steel Cage Warzone. The interaction with some of the people that came up to me saying they listen to Turnbuckle Tavern and they like what we do here. That meant so much. And then the following night, NYWC Psycho Circus 20 had a merch table. Thank you so much, Joey Conway, who's been on Visits to Tavern, allowed me to set up my merch. Definitely sold some trading cards, gave away some Turnbuckle Tavern stickers, hyped up the show. So if you guys are new listeners, thank you so much for coming aboard. Stay tuned. Listen to the other shows, not just my voice. There's so many talented wrestling minds on this podcast channel. So stay tuned for all the content, whether you like WWE, whether it's AEW, whether it's GCW, anything you want, we have it here. We're the hub for wrestling, in my opinion, and we're only getting bigger and better.
Yeah, a lot of shows. If you subscribe on YouTube or if you subscribe on our Apple and Spotify, there's a ton of stuff to dive into, and we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and so also, guys, visit my link tree, pick up the event for Remarkable Wrestling. It's going to be April 22nd, 2023. A little bit further out east if you're a Long Island person, but technically it's Selding, but it's on the border of Coram, which is further out east for the uninitiated to Long Island, but it's in Gabe Sky's hometown for his 1-year anniversary of being champion. By the time this airs, we're announcing it, but it's 2 out of 3 falls, aka 3 stages of hell. Gabe Sky defending against Ken Broadway, Unfinished Business, Cream of the Crop 2. Check it out. Get some tickets. Come say hi to me. It's gonna be April 22nd, All-Star Arena, Long Island. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, go show Ace and all those boys some love. Also, if you're a movie fan, me and Hawk have a movie podcast called The Broken VCR. We moved off of the Turnbuckle Tavern's Apple and Spotify feed. So if we're looking for anyone who loves movies or past listeners, please go to Apple and Spotify, search Broken VCR. You'll see our channel. Subscribe to us. It would mean a lot. We're essentially starting from scratch, but we have 50 episodes there. New episodes will start dropping Tuesday, March 7th on the Broken VCR's own special channel on Apple and Spotify. So again, just search Broken VCR. Check us out if you're into movies.
You guys do that, right? Leave a review and you know what the product is. You know what you're getting. So, do that, subscribe. Well deserved. And it's not just about wrestling here. We're an eclectic mix. We also have the long balls as well. So we're extending our reach. Maybe one day we'll have a baseball show and I have more time in my schedule to talk about other things. But Broken VCR is incredible. It is my recommendation for different seasons of movies. I use it as my horror checklist during Halloween season, spooky season, because I trust Hawk and I trust Chad to tell me what movies are great, and hearing them break it down. What's better than that? It can't just all be wrestling all the time, guys. Let's enjoy other entertainment sources, and what's better than movies with Broken VCR? Get your fix from them.
I appreciate that. We try to give you a healthy dose of nostalgia if you're wanting to relive movies, and a healthy dose of recommendations if you're looking for something you've never seen before. So if you listen to the show and you're a movie fan, I'm sure you'll enjoy it.
While we're shilling, last thing I'll say is Shot Nostalgia Friday. We'll be doing WrestleMania 14.
Ooh.
paired with 2 Raws. So Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin. The Austin era has begun, according to Jim Ross. So we're going to be covering that in depth, potentially having a guest on there to talk about WrestleMania 14. Not going to say who it is yet because I don't want to, just in case they don't show up, but they'll be on eventually. So if they're not there this week, they'll be on one of these other weeks. There's been a lot of interest in 1998. People, our age group has watched it, so people feel a little bit more comfortable getting on and discussing the event. So Chad, we got to get you on one of these events as well.
Yeah. I'll have to look at the schedule and see what event I would want to pop in for, but absolutely.
That's all we got. Chad, lead us out, man. Tell us what they should do, man.
You got to keep it snug. You got to keep it stiff. And most of all, Jay Briscoe forever. We'll see you guys next week.
Reach for the sky, boy.